Adrian N. Breitfelder, City Clerk, you are hereby directed to call a special session of the City Council to be held on Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. in the Historic Federal Building for the purpose of receiving presentations on certain fiscal year 2026 department budgets.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to a special session of the Dubuque City Council for April 22nd, 2025. As a reminder to our participants, you can provide in-person input or virtual audio and written input during tonight's budget presentations. Input options during the live meeting include in-person attendees may approach the podium when the mayor asks if there is any public input for the presentation they would like to speak to. Remote attendees can log into GoToMeeting using the login links, phone numbers, and access code that appear on the broadcast and live stream and posted on the front page of the meeting agenda. This option includes audio input and written chat input. If you are participating via computer, indicate which presentation you would like to speak to in the chat function, or note that you would like to speak during the appropriate section. If you are participating via phone, indicate which presentation you would like to speak to during the appropriate section. All comments, whether in person or virtual, must be accompanied by a name and address. Additionally, written public input is accepted by contacting the City Council directly from the city's webpage at www.cityofdubuque.org/councilcontacts and through the City Clerk's office email at ctyclerk@cityofdubuque.org. Attendance for the session is as follows. Mayor Kavanaugh.
Here.
Council members Farber.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Resnick.
Here.
Roussel.
Here.
Sprang.
Here.
Wethel.
Here.
City Manager Van Milligan.
Here.
Thank you. So we will move on to our budget presentations.
All right, thank you, Adrian. Well, tonight we are going to hear from Information Technologies, or IT Department, Water and Resource Recovery, and Public Works. So I'll invite IT on up to the stage.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm Chris Coleman. I'm currently serving in the capacity of Special Projects Manager for the Information Technology Department as I prepare for my retirement on May 9th. And I have with me tonight Joe Pregler. He is the interim IT CIO for the department. And I think it was a really good strategic move that we did in terms of the move of me to that project and Joe as interim, because continuity of operations is huge in terms of IT. So rather than fall off the cliff and have a new manager, this allowed us to have some interim workings on this. So again, it's my pleasure and honor to have served you for 42 years, and I very much look forward to retirement. So. Our mission statement in IT is all about resiliency and reliability and effective application of technology, as well as that quality of support. So, we look at resources, we look at reliable use of those resources and being resilient. And I think that's been key to IT through the years and how we approach it today in terms of how we apply our technologies. We do have one new staff person in IT since we've last come before you, Hector Hernandez Gutierrez. Hector has been hired to fill one of our help desk support technician positions. And so I think he's hit the floor running in terms of working for the department. This is our current IT organizational chart, and as you can see, Joe's wearing two hats actually, in terms of being the Chief Security Officer as well as interim CIO. And the structure has remained the same since we last reported to you, with 13 full-time equivalents. We do have 2 unfilled positions right now that we're hiring for a help desk support position for our ERP, as well as an information technology intern. When we look at the IT, we look at 3 main functional areas that we provide support assistance. One is network administration and cybersecurity. This is all of our network switches and routers and management of our wireless access points, our broadband fiber optic initiatives and this thing. Enterprise applications is just that, anything that hits every department within the city of Dubuque, whether it be the ERP system support, whether it be support for email, Microsoft 365, those types of things. And then public safety, we provide two staff that our primary purpose for them is to support the Dubuque Law Enforcement Center, the fire department, emergency management, as well as jail, 911, and sheriff. So some of the highlights that we wanted to talk to you about, again, is to talk about our broadband initiatives, which continued. ARPA last year funded a little over $1.3 million worth of extension to different public facilities. A lot of work was done under that project umbrella to do connections for SCADA for our water department that you'll hear about later tonight, and how they connected those remote devices. Also connection of fiber to our data center, which we'll also hear about. And worked with IMON through their partnerships in terms of funding a lot of segments of fiber where IMON would be in a neighborhood or be along a major route, and we needed pieces at the end or pieces in the middle, or we were looking to extend for making a loop, and IMON was there in terms of partnering. While they were already in the ground, they installed things for us. So made a lot of sense with the resources that were already digging in the dirt and making some good things happen. We have continued our public-private partnerships. We have 10 different fiber providers, or ISPs, that we have master services agreements with. And underneath those, probably over 50 project statements that we've done over the years since 2016. And then last year, I've come to you with additional partnerships through Wisconsin Independent Networks, Unite Private Networks, the Iowa Communications Network to connect our 911 services to the data center, as well as MediaCom connecting some services for Dubuque Community Schools under the iNet out at the facility of Chavanel, as well as for us in the IT department. A little bit about IMON's Fiber to the Home project as well. They completed their initial investment at the end of 2024, creating really what we would call almost universal access to over almost 24,000 homes in the city of Dubuque that they passed by. I think that creates a greater Dubuque area of their passings of about 28,000, and it was a $35.1 million investment on the part of IMON to do that. And when you look at the map I've got there, the green areas are the areas that are the pass-bys, or the areas covered by the initial project from IMON. The blue areas are planned for 25, 26, and beyond. And I think when you look at the pink areas, the first reaction is, ooh, that's missed quite a bit. Really, it isn't. When you look at the edge kinds of pieces of the city, those are areas that either are unpopulated or are already covered by Maquoketa Valley or their MV-Link fiber project. So you think of MV-Link coming from the outside in for fiber, and IMON coming from the inside out for our greater Dubuque area. The other area of note is one that we don't have right-of-way to, and that would be a mobile home park on the north end of town that we don't have right-of-way access, or IMON doesn't have right-of-way access to. But it's important to note, too, that, you know, because we have facilitated crossings of rivers and bridges and roads, we've really been able to accelerate this build that IMON did for us, as well as our other 10 partners, and close those gaps. And when we look back to where we were in 2016, when we started with 2 providers and no fiber really, and now we're here with fiber to the majority of homes, I think it's a project that not only as a council but as a community we can be very proud of, and we're able to do it economically and help because of the amount of fiber that we've already installed. So stay tuned for more information on this when engineering gives their update on Thursday evening. I'm going to turn it over to Joe to talk about some highlights of 25.
So for fiscal year 2025 highlights, we have our cybersecurity prevention and awareness, which is made up of the monthly phishing tests that I think everybody receives, as well as some cybersecurity training that we require of all employees to watch every year. We also currently are doing from the Department of Homeland Security, we have free vulnerability scans of our network, which is nice because it indicates to us anything that might be wrong that we need to fix. We get those actually weekly right now. Part of the Central Square Public Safety Software project, which you'll hear a little bit about here and there tonight, we have some new backup software and storage that we had to implement for that project. As Chris mentioned, the water department, the remote site connectivity, we're definitely heavily involved in with all the tech equipment on that side. We're continuing to deploy the FirstNet to a lot of phones and mobile devices. FirstNet, which is the AT&T public safety specialized band there. As I mentioned, the Central Square Public Safety Software project is just starting to kick off now. And then using Laserfish forms, our use of that has increased for various departments, getting some good use out of that for HR, finance, and parks and recreation. Other highlights include Catalyst, which I think just went live here, which is our web QA replacement for our citizen requests. IT asset management, we're basically tagging a lot of our IT assets now so we can keep track of them and log those. We're doing right now with a lot of our software that we use, we're doing some audits and trying to find some savings in there. One example is our PDF editor that we're currently using. We continue to do our replacement cycle of hardware throughout the city every year. And then the IT offices and data center, which Chris is going to cover next.
I think for me and for a lot of you, this is a long-awaited announcement that, yes, we will finally be moving to the new data center on Chavanel. This is an actual picture, too, of some of the configuration that tells a story, really, of what we've built. And I mean, there's been many hands and many folks on the support staff and on our IT staff and our vendors that have worked on this. But, when you look at the ceiling and you look at the racks, it really tells a story of redundancy. We'll talk in a little bit about what N+1 means on this, but it means there's a high level of redundancy per row of racks for air conditioning, for electrical, and for any of those kinds of things that you would think would cause us to fail. So we've taken a great deal of work and time, and then had a fairly fast-tracked implementation of the project in order to create that highly resilient and available resource-rich installation. So again, we should be moving the data center and the offices, I would say within weeks. It's a 956, or basically about 1,000 square foot turnkey Tier 3, and I say Tier 3-ish, we're close, data center, starting out with 16 racks for use by our own staff and early partners that would come in for any excess capacity, primarily focusing on other public sector partners and potentially ISP and middle mile providers. Have some information, and really that second point is that it's scalable in terms of that expansion we've talked about for phase 2. 100 kilowatt capacity expandable to 175 kilowatt with 5.8 kilowatts per data cabinet that we're looking at. We have an on-site generator we were able to use. We've switched out the fire suppression to CO2 because water and technology don't normally match real well, and updated air conditioning and networking services. The offices are a little over 4,700 square feet. There's a traffic area you'll see, about 1,100 square feet, shared data support, and all the kinds of support systems that go with that, including a secure access control system. This is just, again, some more pictures of the data center and some things to just look at in terms of the rack configuration of it that also has within the rack monitoring services for that heating and air conditioning, power, any of the kinds of things that we would see could fail or be failing, have that proactive monitoring. It's secure, locked racks. Also have a pretty robust fiber optic system that's coming in to the center. Initially, one route comes in, I believe from the north, that the city is supplying, another route from the opposite direction through our existing iNet. And then shortly, we'll have a third connection that will come in, another connection that will be built off of the city's connection. So again, highly secure and leveraging some of the things that we've already got in terms of our fiber optic networks, and then moving our equipment out that's already at the annex. I can no longer say to you that we have a data center in the basement of an old funeral home, that we can now say we've made this quantum leap into a data center that I think you can all be very, very proud of. We are a Tier 3 data center, and I'm sure the question is, well, what does that mean? If you look at the chart, kind of scales from Tier 1 to Tier 5, but again, as much redundancy as we can have at Tier 3 is what we have. I think the only things we don't have N+1, but it is planned when we have funding for Phase 2 is a second generator and potentially a feed from a different electrical carrier like Mississippi Valley or something like that. But for the most part, when you also look at between Tier 2 and Tier 3, if you look at an expected annual downtime of 22.7 hours to 1.6, that's a pretty monumental jump that you make in terms of uptime. So for what we did and how we saw this playing, not just for 2025, but the next 20 years or more, that N+1 really makes a lot of sense in terms of how we configured and built this center. The offices, we leveraged as much as we could that was there. That includes substantial footprint of offices and where the cubes were located at from the previous occupant of Medline call center. And so, you know, it was one of those projects that it very much made sense to, again, not just for the technology part of it, but for the offices to create a definitely safer environment structurally and a more robust environment for the ability to not necessarily just grow people, but to grow connectivity within that site. This is where we're at in terms of expense. The data center came in at about almost 1.4 million. The office redesign was about 428,000 to give a total project cost of 1.8 million. This is over from what we had originally estimated. However, I think it reflects the amount of work that we've done in terms of both future-proofing as well as making sure we had that N+1 redundancy in terms of what we needed to do. And we have worked with the finance department as well as within our own department to identify savings that would cover that overage. And there are things like some CIP savings that we had in computer replacements, some additional projects, such as a fiber, crescent link fiber input for expanding our documentation of fiber optics, some available ARPA funds that we had, and some refunds and delayed projects for some things in our department. So again, have been able to make up for that difference that we had in terms of the project. So again, I think the closing piece I'd like to give you about the data center is that Councilmember Farber and I had the privilege and opportunity to share with the National League of Cities Information Technology and Communications Committee that Councilmember Farber's vice chair. And we shared a lot about not only the data center, because they're very interested in what are we going to do with all these hyperscale data centers that will definitely be impacting us over the next 5 years for accommodating artificial intelligence, but they were interested in how we were able to do this project. And I think we very much blew them away in terms of how we took a 72,000 square foot former call center and we're able to create a condominium model that has childcare and preschool and 911 and a data center. And I think they had great interest, not only in terms of, how'd you pay for it, how did you do it, but the partnerships that we've fostered within the city and the partnerships that we've done in IT in terms of things on the broadband and how we partner with the county in terms of the 911 center, that, they saw that this looked like a very interesting, replicable model, but I think for the most part, it does reflect our culture that we have in the city, that we work together to make these kinds of things happen, that these unlikely partners, if you just put them on a piece of paper, would not make sense in terms of the same facility, but they make total sense after we've actually moved. So again, thank you for your support on moving this project forward and moving to the future in terms of what we're doing with the data center. Joe.
And for future initiatives, we're going to keep doing some more targeted cybersecurity training, which by that I mean the people that start to fail the phishing tests more often than others would get additional training, additional education of how to avoid or how to spot those kind of emails that come in. The 911 center move that's going to be out to the same building that we're going to be moving to will be involved with that project, helping and assisting where we can. Again, I mentioned the Central Square Public Safety Software Replacement Project. That's really going to be a multi-year project that a couple of our staff will be heavily involved in. HR is doing a HRIS software implementation. We'll be helping them with that. Some of the Tyler modules that are coming soon here in our ERP software for asset management, advanced scheduling, employee access, manager access, and then just our continued support of that software. Coming soon here is the Copilot implementation. We'll continue to roll that out. Animal control and pet licensing software replacement will also be coming here that we'll be assisting on. We're going to continue to do software audits in our software budget to try to find some savings there for the future and current timeline. And then leveraging capacity for the co-location for others at the data center. And then the FY26 requested property tax support. Net property tax support request is slightly over $2 million, and the average homeowner property tax cost for information technology is $32.14.
I think in terms of some of the public safety initiatives and support, IT provides, in addition to having actual staffing there, we've also talked about some of the safeguarding of data and protection of critical systems from those cyber threats and cyber attacks. Joe has mentioned already, but FirstNet communication support, which is the national system for communication on a separate band for public safety. Several different public safety applications and devices, and it used to be a nice thing to have a mobile in-car computer. It's no longer just a nice thing. It's vital for them to do their jobs. Even things like wireless connectivity to EMS for their cardiac monitors was a recent project that we did with the fire department, and body cameras. And again, the definition of data, I think, has really changed in terms of, how do they do their day-to-day jobs, as well as, things like precision policing and how does that data how does that data fill a need for more of those predictive kinds of analytics that they need to do?
Our FY26 recommended improvement requests are the 100 licenses for Microsoft Copilot, 36,000 reoccurring, and then a compact, rapid deployable CRD system that delivers FirstNet, cellular, and high-speed internet anywhere, which is 3,000 recurring and 34,997 non-recurring. And for FY26 capital improvement projects, we have the citywide computer and printer replacements for $316,317. That is taken into effect, a change we're going to be making that we did with consulting with the finance budget department is changing from a computer replacement from 4 years to 5 years. And for iPads, I believe from 3 years to 4 years. We found with the computers we're buying, even at 4 years, they're extremely reliable. They're not breaking down. We rarely have to buy parts for them. So we felt that moving from a 4-year to a 5-year replacement cycle would be a perfectly acceptable solution.
And in terms of our performance measures, we have updated those performance measures to have some very meaningful and relevant statistics for us. And I think, some of the things that is the detail that's not in here are things like, the enterprise applications group took over 10,300 service calls last year, with 10,000 of those answered. So around a 3% lag on some of that, but still a very good type of response, as well as some of the things that we do on the back end of our performance for our servers, and how often we patch things, and hours of planned downtime and such. So those are the kinds of things I think that make a difference in terms of, again, creating that very resilient and very reliable and available resources for what we do within the city. So with that, I'll say thank you, and Joe and I are available for any questions.
All right, well, thank you very much to you both. We are in a public hearing to discuss the Information Technology Fiscal Year 26 budget. Do we have any public input this evening on this item? Seeing none here, anything virtually?
No
All
input.
right, thank you both. Back to us then.
May I have the
Yes,
honor
Ms.
of beginning?
Farber.
And I thank you very much. And for my colleague, Chris, who has been my partner for the last 4 years, it's just wonderful to see you once again sharing all the good news about your department. When you talked about the technology support and the fact that you did 10,300 service calls, I think that's worth a special note, because it's very important as to what your team does. And so every time there's a problem with an email, a problem with your laptop, a problem with your computer, they call the group and there is a ticket issued, and then a specialist has to respond to that within a certain period of time. And I just find out that 10,300 is extraordinary for your staff. So thank you very much for that. And then maybe at some point in the near future, you can get a technology specialist to add to your team. So Mr. Pregler, FYI, because that really is a full-time job for someone. I also wanted to ask you about the training and education for the cyber team or the network administration team, Joe. Do you have any online options? Do you have any potential with the National League of Cities for some of their training that might be for free? Because I noticed the cost for this potential improvement package was not feasible for this year. And I know through my experience with the NLC, they might be offering some kind of training.
Yeah, I know I believe the Department of Homeland Security has some, free training as well. I'm not sure how that's going to go right now, if that's still going to be available to us. But we do have a package we currently purchased, I believe it's called Pluralsight, that has some free training on there or included training on there. It's pretty light stuff, though. It's usually half an hour to 45 minutes. And actually the same company that we use for our phishing email also has training on there. And again, it's pretty light stuff, not very in depth, but yeah, we do have some of that.
Yeah, because cybersecurity changes every time we speak, if you
Yes.
will. The other question was about the co-pilot licenses, and I think that's great that the entire organization will be able to have a little AI application at their fingertips. Is there going to be ample training for use on that? Because that could be a little daunting as well.
There is. I think that project, we currently partner with a training company called Get Control. And one of the more recent offerings that they have, in fact, they have one coming up this week, it's about introduction to AI, as well as, how to do good prompts and understanding some of those things. So I think we don't take it lightly. The generative AI is a bit of discovery. However, I think you can make it more targeted and work much better for you if you do have those kinds of assistive training. So it's definitely part of our radar as far as being included in the current package we have. So Microsoft also has lots of resources out there as well that are included with the licensing that could be referenced.
Okay, good, because I think it's important even for us to have that kind of training too, because every time I write something, it pops up.
Yeah.
And asks me if I want help, so I think that would be great. Just another point of reference, the software and the data services that were mentioned in our package here, which, my gosh, is probably 2 or 3 dozen of the applications, is extremely significant, I think, for the departments within the city. And I believe that there is not one department that is not touched by one of the software applications or one of the AI applications. And I think that's important because we are really showing what kind of innovation the city is beginning to show as a model city, very similar to when we talked about the data center. We also talked about our innovative steps with our smart applications, which are based on this technology. So I just wanted to share how significant this is, that all of these packages are just enormous and they are state of art. And I have seen some of the information on these as well. And least but not last, I just wanted to really congratulate you on your retirement and my sincere appreciation for all the support and help and the partnership that you and I have had over the last 4 years. And I'm going to miss your advice and our conversations, and I hope that we can continue post your relationship here with the city. But just very heartfelt, and thank you very much. 42 years is just, brava. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Resnick.
Thank you. Exciting times. I do also have some questions about your improvement package number 2, the co-pilot. So 3 questions. I could ask them all at once, and I think I will, and then you can determine how to do this. But, what is the state of the reliability of AI right now? I mean, and do you check everything? Well, the most important things, I bet you do. I know that AI is getting into Wikipedia too, and reliability is an issue with Wikipedia, and so anything with reliability with the internet is going to be perhaps a reliability issue with AI. That's my first question: is what do you think the state of AI? We can rely on that. Number 2, why Copilot? And is it only because, the integration with Microsoft, or is there something more? In general, number 3, could you tell me the process that you went through to choose Copilot from all these different, there's a lot of government AI applications, as I'm sure you're aware. Could you expound on any of those?
Sure.
Thank you.
Your first question, I had to take a moment to smile because reliability and internet don't always come out of the same sentence. If it's on the internet, it must be true. I think the important part, it's 2 pieces. One, of course, is policy that says it's on us to verify what we use in terms of how we're going to apply any kind of generative AI. The second part, and as y'all, I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but any kind of generative AI is based on what's called a large language model, or an LLM. And how we choose to populate that particular, and I say we, choose to populate that LLM is really up to us in terms of a back-end implementation. So we have basically turned off the ability right now of using those external Wikipedia and sort of Wild West of kinds of sources that would A, not be vetted, or B, not be part of our internal organizational data. Because really the power, when we think of generative AI, and some of the things that I use it for are, if you've gotten these strings of emails that have 25 responses and 12 people, and then they keep adding people, I want a summary of that. What have we been talking about since January? summarize this thread of email, which happens very well. Help me write this in a way that is more succinct. You know, I'm a very wordy person, too many words in the email, too many words. I know there's an acronym for it, but those are the kinds of things, really, when you think if I can shave off a few minutes or create a better product, and that's a story of generative AI that often doesn't get told. We see the cool stuff of, you know, write me a song and make me a movie and all that, but it really comes down to searching my huge repository of terabytes of data that I've got, as well as what I have my folks create that large language model for. The other piece of it is, of course, for lack of a better term, chatbots or assistants online. And I think Randy Gale, the RPIO, has one of those items in. So it looks at what the resources are that we already have out there on our website and pulls those kind of data sources in. And the security of it. I don't want anybody referencing data that they shouldn't have eyes on. So those are all things I think that fit under that reliability umbrella. As far as Copilot goes, because that's how I think we looked at what's the real power of this in terms of being able to look at our internal documents, it made a lot of sense to stay within the Microsoft 365 realm to say, A, it's not one more license that we have to manage. B, I think it's been built on some pretty sound security for governments. And the one thing that I think folks were asking me, why don't we have Copilot yet? Why don't we have this? Well, the reason we didn't have it was Microsoft had to work really hard to make it trickle down from the federal requirements of security down to state, down to local. So we didn't get access to the modules that the rest of the world did until it met those kinds of security things for using, you know, personally identifiable information and that. So I think that's what made sense, and that was the process that we used was, can we leverage what we've got? Is it going to be around for quite a while? Is it got a resilient, base or a good set of data that we can control? And those things all came together for us to then say, Copilot really makes the most sense. It may not be the most, it gets a lot of press, but I think some of the others, like ChatGPT and others, get a little more press than it does. But I think for what we want to use it for, which come back, it's government business that we want to use it for, it makes a lot of sense. The functionality could be there, but I think the security and the ability to control that access and input made most sense for what we were doing. So hopefully that, does that answer?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Cool.
I didn't know you could turn off and concentrate just on our internal, and you can attach security to that, and so yeah, a lot of great answers.
And a
Thank
lot
you.
of policy needs to be wrapped around that, because it still is a human, it's still we don't lose our responsibility as humans to say, is this giving the message or the data that's accurate that we want to give to our residents and to each other and to our partners.
Great, and the 36,000 a year, that seemed reasonable. Did you compare that with others?
Yeah,
It's
it's an
ballpark.
add-on to our existing Microsoft 365 licenses.
Right.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Weather.
Well, I just want to say, I think what you've created is a legacy project, and I'm glad that you're here to see it to fruition, how special it is that you'll be there. So, although you might be waving to it on your way out. So my questions relate to AI and reliability. So in healthcare, we have AI for documentation purposes. It has to be accurate. It has to be quick. And it has to be reliable. Right now, we pay individually for licenses for that technology. So each individual person has a license that costs money. But we're not buying it en masse where I work because we're trying it out first. And so my question is, I understand the importance of incorporating this into our city. Why 100? Why not start at 50 and test the reliability before we expand out to that number of licenses? I mean, in a year in which we are really, really trimming budgets, $18,000 is $18,000. And so why not do a more phased in approach as opposed to right out of the gate 100 licenses?
I think it's a really good question, and probably the request doesn't really reflect that that's exactly what we're doing. Right now, we're doing a pilot, which has, I think, up to about 15 users. I've got several more that would like to be part of that project, because the more, and particularly, I think the group that we need to take into consideration, and again, I understand it's a trade-off of, what's every dollar counts. However, our administrative assistants, that is the group that I shouldn't say I didn't expect, but that is the group that's really asking for technology like this. They're the ones that say, we're the ones that do the mundane, things that are everyday, that are repetitive, or that I need some assistance in pulling documents. And so when we hit that number of 100, we looked at those frontline folks, and then so many from each, managers and on down. Does it have to be 100 day one? No, we definitely will say up to 100 is really what that budget request is. However, I always think that as we adopt a technology, and we have some champions that are ready to go, again, with that administrative services group, I think they're the ones that are going to lead the charge in terms of having that implemented across the rest of the organization. So would we be at 100 a year from now? I think it quite possibly is going to be people more than the 100 that want it out of our, roughly 1,000 employees that are out there that are potentially using it. But I think it is a phased approach that we definitely have to look at. But take the willing and take the ones that have ready-made applications that are saying, I see this as something that's going to make my life or my day much more effective and much more efficient.
And do you feel that you have the capability and processes, productivity-wise, and taking people offline to do the training, that there's, again, just all, as you phase it, how many people can you phase in at once, I guess is my question, and make it efficient in making sure we don't take people away from their daily work for extended periods of time to learn the process?
Sure, it's a good question. I think the way that I've experienced it, and again, every industry, healthcare is different than government, is different than other, banking or whatever. The way that my vision for this, and again, it will be the next CIO that will really be implementing this, but the vision that I would have right now would say that it's an adaptive use that starts with a little bit of idea of what is it that I want to do and builds out from that. Some applications are baked in with it, the chat bots and things like that. But I think it's not really an if you build it, they will come. It's I've come to you with building plans and I've got an idea of what I want. How can you help me be enabled with licensing and, again, leveraging our Get Control training. We've got 2 one-hour sessions, and you can look at those and on your time. Don't have to take time out for structured training, because I think that's important. So how can we, meet people where they are, give them the tools that they need to do what they want. We've always had that as our Smarter Cities logo, and I think that would probably, go well with this. So, but point taken in terms of the time, the need for training, I think those are things that we've, kind of put into this thought process, as well as let's not do more than we need to, creep before you crawl, crawl before you walk, walk before you run. But it definitely has that structure to it, if we want to say that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else? All right. Well, Chris and Joe, thank you so much for this. You highlighted a lot of partnerships when you were talking about this. And I mean, I can't think of a bigger partnership than just your department with everybody. It's not lost on me, and I don't think on us, when people are talking about the growth of city budgets over time, And one of the things that I do think gets lost in that discussion is the fact that what you do is now in everything that we do. I mean, it is an absolute part of every single department that we've talked about. There are a few departments like that, finance, for example, but really, and we all work together in some way, but you are just, integrated seamlessly into departments. And I think that recognizing the importance of that and what that really means, but then also highlighting the partnerships like you were talking about with the Bright Minds campus and all those different things that are with the fiber to the home initiative and all those things that have been happening. I think it just really, it's been a pretty amazing few years here for you at the end of your career. You don't even get to enjoy the new space. You're just, which it's kind of nice to be able to set that up and then have it going. But yeah. Well, thank you to you for all your years of service, and thank you to you and your entire team. Joe, thank you for being here tonight too. We really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to being able to move these initiatives along that you've described to us tonight.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. Okay, moving on to the water department. So we'll make a transition here.
Mr. Mayor, as they're making the transition,
Yes, please, Mike.
Mike, it looks like you're currently muted.
sorry, is it, am I muted now?
Yep, you're good. We can hear you.
Oh, good. I was going to say if Chris Lester, the water department director, seems a little distracted, tonight he's missing one of his son's baseball games, and already his son has hit an in the park home run and a triple.
He doesn't get any of that from me, so. You're all,
Well, now we really appreciate you being here with us, Chris, so thank you very
yeah.
much.
I don't want to split hairs, but the in the park home run was also a grand slam, so just on the record. So,
More.
yeah, I mean,
That's awesome. Yeah, ready to go. Go for it.
okay, I know this is the one you're waiting for. Guy that reads from his notes. So anyway, happy Earth Day to everyone. Good evening, and thank you, Mayor Kavanaugh, City Council, Assistant City Manager Corey Burbach, and City Manager Van Milligan, wherever you are. My name is Christopher Lester, City of Dubuque Water Department Director, and I'm joined this evening by my staff in the back row there, Carl Plumley, Water Distribution Supervisor, Nick Conley, Water Operations Supervisor, GIS Specialist Jesse Bernhardt, Industrial Electrical Technician Mike Reinert, and Equipment Mechanic Joe Vondran. So I got a lot of support in the back row, and I'm grateful that they're here. We start this presentation with the Water Department's mission statement developed by our Water Department leaders. The City of Dubuque Water Department is passionate about delivering high-quality drinking water with excellent customer service while meeting our customers' changing needs with equitable and sustainable rates. The dedicated staff committed to delivering high-quality drinking water are comprised of a team of 27 employees, which remains unchanged from FY 2025 into fiscal year 2026. Our dedicated team serves over 24,000 customers around the clock, 24/7, 365 days a year. Operating out of the Eagle Point Water Treatment Plant and the MSC on Kerper Court, we ensure high-quality drinking water while managing a distribution network of more than 330 miles. In addition to water treatment and delivery, our skilled staff respond promptly to emergency main breaks, applying the latest practices in water treatment and distribution. In fiscal year 2025, our team welcomed some new faces. Shown here are the new employees that we are pleased to have on board. We are very fortunate to continue to attract talented individuals whose values align with those of the water department. And I will say the City Council's commitment to retaining and attracting quality staff has been instrumental in bringing on new qualified candidates and retaining the qualified staff that we have. So thank you for that. Recognition for staff for certifications obtained. I almost needed a second slide for this. I would want to recognize some of our staff members who have earned their Iowa DNR certifications during fiscal year 2025. While most positions in our department require at least a grade 2 certification, Our staff consistently pursue and achieve their certifications well ahead of the 36-month timeframe set by the Iowa DNR. Of our 27 full-time employees, 19 require a minimum of a Grade 2 certification, and 6 must maintain a Grade 4 certification. Each certification exam demands significant dedication, with much of the study and preparation happening outside of working hours. These certifications require not only education, but hands-on experience in the field. It takes time, training, and a commitment before staff members authorized to treat and distribute our community's drinking water or work safely around water mains and other buried utilities. I'd also like to recognize staff who have earned certifications in backflow prevention through the Iowa Department of Public Health. The initiative and professionalism our staff show in achieving these credentials speak volumes about their commitment to excellence and the high standards of the water department. The city's spirit statement identifies the values of our organization. The Spirit Awards were created to celebrate what it means to be part of the City of Dubuque organization and recognize the way our employees go above and beyond their job descriptions every day to provide high-quality service to the community. I would like to take another moment to recognize the Water Department employees who received 2024 Spirit Awards: Deb Searles, Danny Peterson, and the water distribution team. If you can't tell, I'm pretty excited about the team I have in water. The reduced utility fee program is aimed at residents who can apply to receive a discount of up to 50% of the minimum water, charge. The total reduced fees applied for in the water utility in FY 2024 were just over $30,000, and the city was able to discount an overall combined reduced fee totaling $152,686. This is up from our FY 23 total of $123,756. So there's definitely a need for this program, and customers are taking advantage of it, so it's a great thing that we're able to offer through the utility billing department. More fiscal year 2025 highlights. Typically, you'll see a capital improvement project up here. What I would really like to highlight is our focus. The primary focus of the City of Dubuque Water Department is maintaining full compliance with all regulatory requirements. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA, sets national drinking water quality standards, while the Iowa Department of Natural Resources administers the public drinking water program and enforces these standards at the state level on behalf of the EPA. In fiscal year 2025, the Water Department successfully met a key regulatory milestone under the lead and copper rule revisions, which required all water systems to develop and maintain an inventory of service line materials by October 16, 2024. For water systems serving populations over 50,000, this information was to be made publicly accessible. Dubuque residents are able to view the inventory on the city's website under the lead service line inventory map at cityofdubuque.org/water department. In compliance with the lead and copper rule revisions, the Water Department also issued notifications to each customer whose service lines were identified as containing lead, galvanized requiring replacement, or classified as lead status unknown. These notifications were sent within 30 days of completing the initial inventory and will continue to be issued annually until the affected service lines are confirmed to no longer contain lead. The City of Dubuque Water Department completed this regulatory requirement in full by the October 16, 2024 deadline. It was a huge undertaking. Give credit to our distribution crew led by Carl Plumley and Jesse Bernhardt in the back row there for getting this done, staying ahead of it, and getting that inventory posted online. It was a huge task, and they did a phenomenal job. The Water Meter Technical Upgrade Program. This was launched in FY 2022. It's a proactive 5-year replacement program for meter interface units, MIUs, and registers targeting the replacement of approximately 5,000 units annually. This program aims to manage costs by replacing equipment that is no longer covered under manufacturer warranty. Additional funding is requested in FY 2026 to continue this program. The work of installing these MIUs, the 5,000 that we do each year, is carried out by Water Department staff with equipment supplied by Ferguson Waterworks and Neptune. The city negotiated a pricing agreement tied to an approved replacement schedule, which supports consistent budgeting and ensures long-term pricing commitments from both the distributor and manufacturer. In FY 2025, the city completed critical repairs to our well number 2 after the pump began experiencing performance issues. The $76,742 project, completed in March by Peerless Well and Pump, included well televising, brushing and bailing, air shock treatment, acidizing, installation of a temporary pump to flush sediment, and reinstallation of the permanent pump. This targeted rehabilitation ensures the continued reliability of a drinking water source for the community. The Eagle Point Water Plant Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition, or SCADA upgrade. This is kicking off in FY 2025 and will continue through next year with anticipated completion in June of 2026. Our current SCADA system has been in place since 1993 and runs on RS Logix 500, which is now obsolete and unsupported. This project replaces outdated hardware and software, improving system performance and cybersecurity at the water treatment plant and remote sites. The $1.345 million contract was awarded to Westfall and Company of Dubuque. This upgrade ensures long-term reliability and efficiency of our SCADA system. And as Chris Coleman mentioned earlier, in addition to that project, we're moving forward a lot with IT's help on the citywide fiber network, so we'll have fiber to our remote sites as well to complement that upgraded system, or SCADA at the pumping stations and towers. The private lead service line replacement pilot program. The city continues to move forward with this unique opportunity to assist individual home and property owners with the functional replacement of private lead water service lines through the private lead service line replacement pilot program funded through the bipartisan infrastructure law. Over the next 2 years, we plan to replace approximately 585 private lead service lines in 3 phases. The first phase, which is kicking off this summer, will replace 196 lines, with the remaining approximately 385 to be replaced by the end of calendar year 2026. Nearly $2.5 million of the project cost will be forgivable, providing an invaluable opportunity to secure funding for future projects that would otherwise be challenging to fund. Additionally, the pilot program is 100% voluntary and is open to those residents with a verified drinking water lead service line and meeting the socioeconomic guidelines established by the Iowa DNR and Iowa Finance Authority. FY 25 funding supports the extension of water main from the North Cascade Road and Edval Lane intersection to North English Road. This project includes 4,200 feet of 16-inch and 2,900 feet of 12-inch water main installation. This project will enhance service for existing customers and support future growth along the Southwest Arterial Corridor, making it a key investment in infrastructure to meet both current needs and long-term development. We continue to work on advancing a new deep well number 11. PFAS remains a top priority in the drinking water industry and for the city. We continue to invest in PFAS mitigation and regulatory compliance by advancing a new deep well water supply. To date, the deep well sampling has shown no PFAS detections, making it a promising long-term source. The estimated cost to advance the new deep well is just under $4.5 million plus contingency. This project supports our commitment to providing safe, high-quality drinking water well into the future. The city remains committed to pursuing all options for financial, The city remains committed to pursuing all options to finance essential capital improvement projects. One of the most commonly used funding mechanisms is the State Revolving Fund, or SRF loan program. This program is especially well suited for municipal infrastructure initiatives, offering several key advantages, such as variable low interest rates, no credit rating required, payment of interest based on what and when used, lower bond counsel fees, adjustable terms, planning and design loans, and optional 2 years of interest-only payments. While the State Revolving Fund loans provide substantial financial advantages, they can also come with specific challenges that require thoughtful planning and management. Those challenges include Davis-Bacon wages may apply, the Build America, Buy America, BABA may apply, multiple applications to the state, and the environmental review process. The environmental review process, as you can see, can take between 90 days and 18 months. That's been one of the key factors in our private-led service line program. Initially, the first phase that we're doing this summer, we had intended to do in calendar year 2024. The environmental review process was very lengthy, and that's what has pushed us now to this calendar year for starting that program. For fiscal year 2026, we are proposing a 9% rate increase over the FY 2025 rates. For the average Dubuque household, which uses approximately 6,000 gallons of water per month, this would result in an estimated increase of $3.60 on their utility bill. The proposed 9% rate increase would bring the average household water bill to $42.58 for 6,000 gallons. Dubuque will have the fourth lowest rate among Iowa lime softened facilities, with the highest water rate being Des Moines, which is 8.03% higher than Dubuque's proposed rate, and the average rate, not including Dubuque, 2.2% lower than our proposed rate. How does water department impact public safety? There's a few reasons. Clean drinking water is essential to protecting public health and safety. It ensures compliance with federal and state regulations and plays a vital role in supporting the overall well-being for our community. By reducing the risk of waterborne illnesses such as cholera, and I was going to Google this to make sure I pronounce it right, so giardiasis, up in the back? No, that's all right. And E. coli infections. Clean water protects residents from serious health threats. It also supports critical daily hygiene practices like hand washing, cooking, and cleaning. I had a silly story, but I'll keep it to myself. I've never had that disease, so I don't know how to pronounce it, but if some of those, if you've had it, you know how to pronounce it, so thankfully I have good water, no issues. Should have kept that to myself. Beyond public health, clean water enables the safe operation of community amenities maintained by the Parks and Recreation Department, including drinking fountains, swimming pools, and splash pads. These facilities are especially important during warmer months, promoting hydration and overall wellness. And finally, from an emergency preparedness standpoint, a stable and reliable water distribution system is essential. It allows emergency services to respond effectively during crises, and is vital for firefighting operations, helping to protect property and save lives. So if you're wondering, does the water department save lives? That's what you heard. The need for infrastructure investment, I had this broken into 2 slides. The first is kind of looking at a national level. The nation's water infrastructure is aging and underfunded. Utilities face growing challenges, including deteriorating infrastructure, emerging contaminants, and the increasing effects of extreme weather. As of 2024, there's a $309 billion gap between drinking water infrastructure needs and available funding. This number is expected to reach $620 billion by 2043. Over half of public water systems, again, this is across the nation, report aging and fatigued infrastructure as their top concern. Nearly 20% of the country's water mains, over 450,000 miles, have outlived their expected service life but remain in use due to limited funding. This is a busy slide, and I apologize for it. I had so much to get on one slide. What are the specific challenges to Dubuque related to infrastructure investment and needs? What we found, the challenges that we face specific to Dubuque are the aging and fatigued infrastructure. To differentiate those two, aging infrastructure refers to components that are at or near the end of their intended lifespan. These systems often show visible signs of deterioration, such as corrosion, cracks, or reduced treatment performance. In contrast, fatigued infrastructure refers to components that have been weakened over time by repeated stress, such as pressure fluctuations or temperature changes, even if the materials themselves aren't particularly old. In short, aging results from passage of time, while fatigue is caused by ongoing stress. Both are serious concerns that require constant attention and investment. Aging and fatigued infrastructure is also a leading contributor to water loss. Many of our existing facilities were designed to meet much lower demand than we see today and now require upgrades or, in some cases, complete replacement to continue serving the community effectively. Topography and pressure zones. Dubuque has 9 pressure zones, and in case you wouldn't already be aware, a pressure zone is a geographic area that receives water from a single source or set of sources, resulting in relatively consistent water pressure within that area. These zones are often defined by elevation differences, which clearly we have in Dubuque, with each zone serving a specific elevation range. So each of these 9 pressure zones require careful pressure management to maintain system reliability and to avoid damage. Proper pressure is critical. Too high a pressure stresses infrastructure. Too low risks backflow and the introduction of potential contamination into the distribution system. Elevation changes, like the 700-foot lift we have from the Eagle Point Water Treatment Plant at the end of Kerper to the Vernon Tower on Highway 20 by the truck stop, add complexity and energy demands to this mix. Emerging contaminants, such as PFAS, are found in 45% of U.S. drinking water, affecting over 130 million people. While $9 billion have been allocated federally to address PFAS, local utilities like Dubuque bear much of the responsibility for monitoring and removal. Dubuque is investing in increased monitoring and a $4.5 million deep well project to ensure water safety. Finally, lead and copper rule compliance. Dubuque must replace all customer-owned lead service lines within 10 years. That's part of that new regulatory, which is why we're prioritizing that lead service line replacement being 49% forgivable. The federal government has set a goal to remove 9.2 million lead service lines nationwide. Dubuque plans to replace approximately 585 lines, starting with 196 in phase 1, supported by $2.5 million in forgivable funding. So that's a huge advantage for us to take advantage. Yeah, it's a great program, and we're happy to be pursuing that. The Water Department organization is comprised of 3 divisions. They are administration, operations or treatment, and distribution. Administration oversees and is directly involved in employee training and development, regulatory compliance, and capital improvement planning. The second division, plant operations, includes our certified operators and maintenance staff who ensure regulatory compliance, oversee daily water production and treatment, maintain wells and well fields, manage pumping to the distribution system, and operate and maintain storage facilities and the SCADA system that enables system-wide communication. They got a lot going on in operations. A key metric for the water department is the comparison between treated water production and metered water consumption, which helps identify non-revenue water or water loss in the distribution system. Non-revenue water includes water that is not billed, meaning no payment is received. It covers both real losses, such as water used for firefighting, main flushing, hydrant flushing, or water lost due to main breaks, leaks, and apparent losses, which involve unauthorized consumption, metering inaccuracies, and data handling errors. So looking at this chart here, in fiscal year 2024, the water department treated just under 2.5 billion gallons of water and measured 2.067 billion gallons through customer metering, resulting in 433 million gallons, or approximately 20.8%, classified as non-revenue water. Historically, the American Water Works Association, or AWWA, referenced a 15% benchmark for non-revenue water. That's kind of what they encourage utilities to look for, was to get around that 15%. Whereas now it encourages utilities to adopt a more comprehensive, financially driven approach to water loss management. Doing some research earlier this week, the EPA, according to the EPA, the national average water loss due to leaks alone is 14%, with some systems reporting losses exceeding 60%. Accurately accounting for water and minimizing loss are essential to operating an efficient and effective utility. So what are we doing? What are we currently doing to address this non-revenue water? So what we do now, we have regular leak detection surveys that's done every few years. We do the active pressure management, which I talked about, with the pressure zones, maintain the pressure within in the 9 different pressure zones, which can be very challenging. We have targeted infrastructure investments, and we have a distribution crew that does prompt repair of main breaks and leaks to reduce that water loss. As Chris, again, to touch on what Chris Coleman said with the installation of that citywide fiber, we are looking at a capital improvement project for FY 2027, which would introduce a district metered zone. And essentially the district metered zone, it will measure, in a pressure zone, we're looking at pressure zone 2, but it will measure the water going into that specific area, and we can compare that to what utility building collects for resident readings. And we can see, if we're pumping in, say, 1.5 million gallons that day or that month, and then we'll compare what utility building has and see if there's a huge gap, and then we can identify in pressure zone 2 there's a potential leak somewhere that we may not have addressed, and we can kind of focus our efforts on that. So we'll take some investment, with Chris and her team helping us out with getting that fiber through the city. We're closer to these zones, but there will be some more investment every year to put these DMZs in place, but that's something else we're looking to target to reduce the non-revenue water. Something I will tout with my distribution crew is in calendar year 2024, they did get out and flush every one of our hydrants. What's the number? 2,600 hydrants, which is the first time that we have on record that all those hydrants were flushed in a 12-month period. So again, that's part of that unaccounted for water. We don't have meters on when they're flushing those hydrants, but again, for the first time, and that our records indicate, the crew was able to do that in a 12-month period, so that's outstanding. So. I'm close. Bear with me. The final division, water distribution, is responsible for operating and maintaining approximately 333 miles of public water main, ranging from 4-inch to 30-inch in diameter, 8,633 valves, 2,652 public hydrants, and over 24,000 curb box valves. And all this is done by a 7-person distribution crew with 1 lead. The distribution crew conducts inspections, does pressure testing, and bacteriological testing on new water main installations and development projects, ensuring water safety during construction. They also handle new service taps, valve replacements, water main installations, flushing of water mains, and exercising public water main valves. Additionally, the distribution crew includes a 4-person meter crew with 1 lead, responsible for managing over 24,000 meters, registers, meter interface units, and overseeing the city's backflow prevention program. Not so much a real fun fact, but in that top picture there, these 2 gentlemen here, everyone that was out with painting that hydrant, they're out there restoring hydrants and painting them. There was poison ivy mixed all around that, so when they were pulling the weeds to get to it, every staff member that went out there got poison ivy. So not a fun fact, but an interesting fact.
Oh, no.
And I know how to say poison ivy, even though I have never gotten it. Water distribution, main breaks specifically. In fiscal year 2025 to date, we have responded to 62 water main breaks as of today. Main breaks can result from conditions such as freezing and thawing conditions of the ground, water hammer, corrosion, or aging and fatigued infrastructure, which we're all very well versed on now. For reference, the winter of 2013 to 2014 was extremely cold, and there was a frost depth reported at 4 to 6 feet deep. We recorded 57 frozen private water service lines and 137 main breaks, so obviously that's high. So I want to show you, like, hey, this is how bad it can be, and this is what we're working to get that reduced. So this fiscal year, aside from a brutal cold stretch in January, which accounted for 17 main breaks over a 2-week period, the winter has been mild, but our operations staff continue to be cognizant of how plant adjustments impact the distribution system. This is something I've been touting for the last couple of years. You know, they operate on pressure now, like in our distribution meter zones. Pressure is how the operators operate the plant and everything out in the system. Our maintenance staff adjusted automatic valve settings to allow greater water volume to move through the system before closing valves, reducing water hammer spikes. Our operators also modified pump startup and shutdown procedures to help mitigate these pressure surges that can cause main breaks. So again, this combination of physical system adjustments and operator diligence has helped us to work on keeping main breaks at very low levels. We're working to get better, but better than we were. For new service taps, FY25 to date, we have done 67 service taps. New connections are also what we refer to as service taps. The funds from these taps are used directly for the installation of new services installed by, again, our city's water department distribution crew. New connections result from community growth, such as new housing, businesses, and industry. As I mentioned before, part of the distribution crew are a 3.5 full-time equivalent team with 1 lead and with 1 lead distribution maintenance worker. The meter crew, as we call them, provides dependable meter management consisting of testing, dismantling, cleaning, repairing, and reassembling meters as required. They also perform installation services, address pressure complaints, investigate illegal use of water, install outside registers, and perform special reading of meters upon request. To date, in FY 2025, the crew has responded to just over 6,280 service calls, with approximately 3,400 of them being the proactive MIU changeouts that we do 5,000 a year. The water department also administers a backflow prevention program. A backflow prevention device is a device that works to protect drinking water from contamination or pollution due to backflow. We do charge an administrative fee of $25 per device, and that fee is reviewed annually to confirm the fee reflects actual costs. 2025 revenue to date is $80,100. And we currently track just under 3,300 backflow prevention devices across the city. For 2026, the Water Department has one recommended improvement package request, which is additional operating funds to support a formal valve turning program as recommended by the DNR. This funding will address maintenance needs and mitigate issues that may arise from lack of a structured valve exercise program with an estimated recurring cost of $80,000. I mentioned our distribution crew had flushed every single hydrant last year. That's our goal, to flush every hydrant each year. With having over 8,600 valves that need to be exercised, we've broken that down into a 4-year program where they're going to exercise every valve. Some of the valves have not been turned in probably 10 years or longer with not having a formal exercising plan, so we're anticipating a pretty good failure rate in those valves, which is why we're asking for this $80,000 is to repair those, and obviously our distribution crew will repair those themselves. We won't have to contract that out. That's strictly just for the price of the valves as needed. FY 26 capital improvement projects, we do have, there's 2 slides here. This year's definitely been a challenging year for budget. You guys, the council's familiar with that. Our finance team and budget team have been working very hard. We're very grateful for the projects that have been recommended. A lot of these I've touched on already, but some are just maintenance for our facilities, the roof at the water plant, our share of the municipal service center roof replacement, and then some are again just our regular funds for wells, well field rehab, pipe rehabilitation, fire hydrant stock and replacement. Though the prices of materials are obviously quite a bit higher than they were historically, so that's gone up. We're able to replace some of our fleet vehicles, which is wonderful. Thank you. I'm not good at transitions. Sorry, I didn't know where to end that last sentence. So in FY 2026, the city plans to deconstruct the Eagle Point Park water tower. This structure was removed from service in 2021 following the completion of the Roosevelt Street Tower off Sky Blue Drive, as it no longer serves a functional purpose within the drinking water utility. The estimated cost for deconstruction is $97,500. This project will be fully funded from the existing budget using funds from CIP, the Crossroads property, Phase 1 and 2, as that is not yet ready for development. So this will not require any additional requests for FY 2026. We have funds available to take care of this. Performance measures, goals improving. Obviously, we continue to work on lower main breaks. Main breaks cause additional operation and maintenance costs for water distribution per 100 miles. And then operation of 25% of distribution system valves annually. Last year, we did not meet that goal just because we stopped with the program once we hit our budget, to stay under budget and be cognizant of that. Goals that are on track, number of regulatory compliance violations, our target is 0. We met that. Number of completed annual training hours to support CEUs, we hit that every year. And number of projects completed within the program budget. Oh, there it is. Welcome back. So that's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have or go into even deeper depth.
All right. Thank you,
need
Chris.
me to, please.
We are in a public hearing to discuss the Water Department budget, fiscal year 26. Do we have any public input on this? Yeah, please.
Good evening, Clark Slows, 2925 Burlington Street. Don't have very many comments. I'm combining both water and the Resource Recovery Center as kind of two birds with one stone. And part of the discussion happened last night with Councilman Jones on, the need for sewer improvements and, the rate increases. Basically, at the start of the budget presentations, city manager mentioned, enterprise funds. Basically, I call them the city utility rates. And essentially that makes Public Works, Water Resource Recovery Center as public utilities. And the city council kind of serves as a pseudo Iowa Utilities Board where we come and make our appeals why, the rate shouldn't be that high, or, one of our reasonings, and you got to make your decisions. And also, a few weeks ago, had a meeting with the engineering department where we discussed, cost of construction for water, sewer, stormwater projects. Probably one of the most expensive type of projects there is. And the rate of inflation for materials and other items in that area is understandable, because I've always used, the rate of inflation as my guideline. What's the CPI compared to that? And over the last 2 years, those rates have been anywhere, from 5% up to 12%. It's varied from year to year. And I kind of hope that, this isn't a thing that's going to be an indefinite time frame where we're going to see rates going that high. I understand them, I do. But, it doesn't mean I have to like them. And the only other thing I got kind of as a side note, between myself, the director of the water department, and the Water Resources Recovery Center, I think we owe your Public Works Director a steak dinner, because I'll explain later on, she took one for the team and did very well. And I'll explain that a little later. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Clark, for your comments. Any other public input tonight on this? Anything virtually? All right, thank you both. All right, back to us then. Any discussion? Mr. Resnick.
Yes, a couple questions, and this might be for you or for Ms. Larson. I'm looking at the amount requested here, and we anticipate there'll be some kind of a deficit of $200,000. And we have a 9% rate scheduled, and it says that 1% rate increase generates $106,000 or so. So the rate increase brings in about $950,000, and we're anticipating $200,000 of a shortage, and so that's $750,000 difference. So I'm wondering if that is because it's an enterprise that's meant to be principal and interest of some of the capital projects, or I'm wondering about how that all works. It doesn't show me where that $750,000 is going to be used. Do you see what I'm talking about? The look is.
Jennifer Larson, Chief Financial Officer. So first of all, the 199, roughly 200,000 you're referencing is just a spend down in cash. It's not a deficit needing to be made up by the rate increase, just to make that distinction. And then the 9% rate increase is needed, a combination of operating expense, so some of those increases on the operating side, so, and then also on the capital side, so some of the capital projects that were submitted that need to be funded.
Okay, it doesn't show me, usually this plus this equal, the expenses and resources come down to zero. You add them together and there's some kind of a balancing. I just didn't know if there's a balance. And so I guess I don't understand the net operating deficit of being $200,000 is not really a deficit?
No, we're just using some water fund cash balance to fund part of their budget, so it's going towards some of their capital project funding.
Okay, I guess I don't understand that either.
One of the line items up top under expenses is payment to construction fund. So essentially, some of the funds are being transferred to their construction projects.
And the $750,000, well, I'm not sure of the amounts anymore because I guess I don't understand what that 200,000 was, but the 9% is mostly to fund capital projects, and that's principal and interest. Yes, no, or
no, not all of Water's projects are debt funded. Some are cash funded. So it's a combination of some debt being issued and some cash in the water fund.
Well, this is the first one I don't understand how that works. I've always understood what this meant and how everything is. So but I mean, yes, some, but you ever show us where that is or what the numbers are and how you got that number?
I don't think I could do that tonight at the podium.
No.
No, we do very comprehensive,
I'm sure you do.
like 10-year plus cash flows with our financial advisor. So that's how the rates are set, and that's how the determination is made of, any transfers that are made between the operating capital funds and how much is debt, how much is cash funded as far as capital projects.
I know it's not your fault that I don't know what's going on here, but it would be, and since it's a budget meeting, it'd be great to have that to help us a little bit or help me to understand, well, what that doesn't mean anything to me anymore. I mean, I don't know what to ask and even, and I usually ask questions. Anyway, we can talk about this later because is this for every enterprise fund this happens?
Every enterprise fund, we do comprehensive cash flow analysis, and then a rate increase is set to make sure that we're meeting, for example, bond covenant requirements, and we're funding the capital projects that need to be done, and we're meeting the operating budget requirements.
Well, every year you win awards, so I know you're doing the right thing. I just know that I'm not understanding it. Okay, a second question and final question is, we have millions being spent on supplies, valves, et cetera. Well, could you tell me, perhaps, Mr. Lester, what are the purchasing policies? Do we look far and wide? Do we check with our local people, or where do we get our valves and all this $1 million of equipment? And what's the purchasing policy, I guess?
Great question. So most of our valves are sourced locally. Whenever we do go out for a bid, a lot of times if we put we traditionally have like a fall order of supplies or a spring order, but we solicit a certain amount of quotes as required, based on the amount that we're looking to expend. So we'll submit a lot to J&R Supply across the river, and there's a couple other places I can't recall offhand, but when we're looking to do a large order of supplies, we'll submit requests for quotes, requests for bids on the exact amount of items that we're looking for, the quantity, sizes, everything. And then we take that and we go with the lowest bidder.
Sure. And so do you have a purchasing agent, or do you do that then?
We do all that in-house, yeah, within the water department. And then if we need assistance, we reach out to finance, yep.
And you have a policy and you follow it?
With the policy, yeah, we adhere to the city's policy, yep.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Russell first, and then we'll go Mr. Spring.
Thank you. I found in your presentation that was really interesting to hear about so many of the things that you do and the investments that you make are done to make your department more efficient and really to decrease costs or to prevent future costs from happening, like working to reduce main breaks or the valve turning program that you're going to work on to be proactive with the assets that we have. And I think it's really impressive that it's all done by this really small, efficient staff. So it sounds that you are really always looking ahead and taking the assets that we have, taking care of them, and preparing for what they're going to need going ahead. So I just wanted to thank you for that really detailed and interesting presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'll give all that credit to my staff. Since I started, I think we've had to, through retirements and whatnot, we've had to replace about half the team, but the staff that I have now are very forward-thinking. It's not the traditional, we've always done it this way, so that's how we're going to do it. They're consistently looking for efficiencies. There's probably things that we could be doing that we just haven't identified yet, but again, all credit to my staff because they are always on the eye out for how can we do something better, how can we do it more efficiently, how can we not cut costs, but do it at less of a cost to the city and to the taxpayers. So they are a phenomenal team, and thank you very much for that comment.
Mr. Spring.
Thank you. Chris, thanks for everything that you guys are doing to keep us all have healthy water. I always get this question asked probably about every couple months about fluoride. I understand the benefits of it. I was going through your significant line items, and number 8, it discusses the chemicals that we purchase. looks like we only purchased about $10,500 worth of fluoride. How much is that actually put into our system?
I don't have the actual number of gallons specifically, but you're right. The addition of fluoride is a very small cost to the city of Dubuque. It's a very controversial topic. Obviously, I get a fair amount of requests myself. We put in, what we add to the water is basically what's recommended by the American Dental Association and another health organization I can't recall right offhand, but essentially we don't have to add a lot of fluoride to the drinking water. We go to the very low end of the recommended standards, which is 0.7 milligrams per liter. What a lot of people may not know is that the water coming into the plant, the raw water that we call it, has naturally occurring fluoride. That can vary anywhere from between 0.1 milligrams per liter to 0.3. So to get that to the level, the lowest recommended level by the ADH, American Dental Association, ADA, it takes a very small amount of fluoride. We're not pumping in a tremendous amount. In some instances, we're not even doubling the current amount that's naturally occurring in the water. So that's why that is such a small expense. And I'm sorry, I can't quantify the exact gallons, but I can get that for you if you like.
No, that gives us a good idea. So basically, we're adding very little fluoride to the water because this could become an issue coming up with the current federal administration, changes there. There's discussions about eliminating fluoride. I believe that it's a good thing in our water system, but that is what it is. So that was my main question. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Wetha.
I'll just piggyback it. It's the American Medical Association and the American Dental Association that both recommend fluorinated water. So as I walk out the door most nights, your kids are playing ball tonight. My daughters get done running track, and every night I make a comment about what we're going to hear tonight at budget. And so I'm walking out the door, and my 18-year-old goes, "What are you going to hear tonight?" And I said, "All about your safety of your water." And she goes, "That's right, Mom." I don't get very many cheers from an 18-year-old as it relates to budget. So Chris, you're pretty special, just so you know. I wanted to ask just a couple questions. You had mentioned within the next 10 years, residential lead lines need to be replaced. Is that by 2035 then? Is it 10 years from now? Or, and you don't have to tell me tonight, but I was just curious about when that was recommended.
I believe it's by 2036.
Okay.
There's some time, but
Okay.
there was some time between proposing of that legislature and then when it actually goes into effect, and I believe 2036. 26 or 36 or 37. So there's some time, obviously, and to Councilman Sprank's comment, with the current legislation, we don't know what 10 years is going to look like necessarily, but just to take advantage of that funding right now and replace the lines, it is a directive that utilities essentially, because we are public water systems and they can enforce regulations on us as a drinking water system. That's why they kind of target utilities, even though utilities aren't necessarily flush with cash. That's why we kind of get those directives placed on us. But yeah, it's 10 years that the responsibility will lie to us, whether that's assessing homeowners or whatnot. So yeah, it is a directive that we're looking down the barrel of right now.
Great. Kind of to dovetail on that. So I had some questions come my way regarding in relationship to the residential lead service line project that we're going to do, the 585 homes, I think it is. The question was, why are we doing residential homes and not public homes? And my understanding, or not residential homes rather than public property that is city-owned property. And so my understanding is this funding was specifically related to just the topic of being able to fund residential lead lines, and we couldn't use that funding for any other public replacement of lines in the city. It would have to be replacement of residential lines. Is that correct?
I believe the program had some ambiguity as far as what we wanted to prioritize. So we looked at residential first as our kind of our primary target. Obviously, with city property, we own those lines. The water department is responsible for those as well, replacement of those. So yeah, I guess we came at that first as how can we help the residents, knowing that if there's a requirement that we'll have to cover the costs of all the service lines that are owned by the city ourselves, so.
Well, I appreciate the program. I'm really grateful for it. I think it's the right thing to do. The other thing I wanted to just make a comment on is my gratitude for the deconstruction of the water tower at Eagle Point. I think our citizens, residents will be very pleased with that plan based on our Parks and Recreation discussions we had the other night. So thank you. I think that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Schmink.
Couple more follow-ups. Chris, want to jump back to Ms. Wethel's question about the lead lines. So you're saying in about 10 to 12 years, we as the city has to have those other lines replaced. Is that correct?
Yeah, currently, with the lead and copper rural improvements, I believe it was that the legislature that came out in October of last year, they're putting the burden on the utilities to have all the service lines in their community replaced within 10 years, regardless of who the ownership is. Obviously in Dubuque, the service lines are owned from the main to the meter by the resident. But with that new legislature, it's the responsibility of the utility to get those removed. So,
okay. So sounds like we better start making a plan to figure out, because you have a water distribution master plan. Is that going to be discussed in that at all? I see that's your for next year, that in one of your capital improvement project is a water distribution master plan. Is that discussed in there at all, or you still don't know where we have all the lead lines? Or
so with that, part of the lead and copper rule improvements that I discussed, we do have we're very confident on where the lead service lines are in town, especially with the private lead service line replacement program. We've had a lot of interest in that, and what we do is we send our staff out, our distribution and meter crew, and they do in-home verifications to get eyes on it. And through that process, we've actually eliminated a lot of lines that we suspected were lead, and we found that they've been copper, so we've been able to reduce the total number. I do this, I forget what the question was, I get on a rant here, but what was the question again, Councilman Sprague? I'm sorry.
The question is kind of, it sounds like, so this is going to be a future problem, and I like to be aware of a future problem, and I'm glad that you're telling us that this is going to be a future problem. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have to work on it at some point, and if we want to get this done in under 10 years, and they may give us more of a deadline, they may extend that deadline, but we shouldn't be starting this probably in 2035. We need to be starting this in like 2030 is what I'm saying, and that's going to be coming up sooner than what we think. But the question was, is that going to be discussed in this water distribution master plan?
So yeah, there'll be some discussion with that, and I apologize for asking you to repeat that question. Yeah, there'll be some of that. Part of that funding as well is for potential future developments.
Yes.
Like if we have, say, the Crossroads property, for example, if a large industrial user wants to come in there, we work with Origin Design. They have our hydraulic model. That's got some funding in there to run that model and kind of determine what size mains would be needed to meet the demands of that property, provide adequate fire flow and whatnot. But yeah, we'll have the early discussions as far as getting a plan for the replacement of all those service lines within 10 years. I believe that's part of the requirements of that program is within a certain amount of time from passing the regulation, we have to identify what our plan is. So yeah, we are being very proactive. We're not going to wait until 2030. We're going to have those discussions within the year on kind of setting a plan for that.
So citizens will be
and
aware.
Mr. Mayor, this City Manager Mike Van Milligan.
Go ahead, Mike.
We're replacing 10% of those lines over the next 3 years. So we've actually already started. But yes, and it's accurate that we'll have a plan to replace the rest of them within the required schedule.
Right. That was it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? So, first of all, let me just say, thank you for all the work that you do. You pointed out a couple of really big things. Just the inventory of the lead service lines, huge lift that your team got done. So congratulations on that. I also wanted to say congratulations on all the certifications. I didn't realize how much your team goes above and beyond. I think that's a really great thing. I mean, talk about something that is a real public service to our community. I think that's fantastic. I was glad to learn that tonight. You did a great job, Chris, of outlining the challenges in our system and the need for investment in that system and the ways in which you're doing that. Councilwoman Roussel pointed out how you're doing that more efficiently and really focusing on those efficiencies to try to, for instance, your discussion of tracking things by zone to be able to look at the leaks and have a better understanding of what's really happening, what's the reality under the ground so we know what's really happening there. I think that's great. So I don't really have any questions for you. I'm going to get on my soapbox for just a quick second, though, because what we're talking about is just fundamentally ridiculous, honestly. This whole idea that we need to be in charge of replacing lead lines in a 10-year period. And when that came out last year, I found it to be fundamentally ridiculous. It is the epitome of an unfunded mandate. And the reason that's such a big deal is because there is frequent discussion in our state about how city governments are spending too much money doing these things, and we shouldn't be doing these things. We should spend less money. We should tax less and all those things. Not necessarily disagreeing with that fact. Would love to be able to tax less and be able to, not have to spend money on things. But when we are forced to spend money on something like that in a 10-year period and say, you just need to replace every single lead line, have they been to Dubuque before? Do you understand the situation that we're actually talking about here? I find that really, really challenging. And in fact, yes, we need to plan for it. And yes, we need to just plan as if it's going to happen. But in the meantime, I plan to have us go to Washington, D.C. and continue to talk about how that timeline needs to be extended and funded by the federal government. It's not the city's responsibility. It's not any city's responsibility to have to do those things that to have to fix the problems that everybody created generations ago. I think we need assistance to get that done. And I'd say the same about PFAS. I jump on this soapbox every single year. It drives me up a wall that we are in charge of mitigating PFAS as a local government. We did not create PFAS. We did not put it in everything. Somebody else did that, and that somebody else should be paying for that. And if it's not them, the federal government should be helping to do that. It's just something that, to put that on the backs, those two things, to put that on the backs of local governments, I think is a travesty, and I don't think it should occur. We do have to plan for it. Thank you for doing that. I think we need to continue to follow the law as the law is laid out to us, but at the same time, if we can change those laws in any way, I think it's important that we keep trying. It's just one of those things that I wasn't going to jump on that soapbox, but when the questions kept coming up, I had to write it down and I had to get up there because it just is, these are two things that they really bug me quite a bit. And the PFAS thing in particular, but the lead line mandate is something that we need to change the fact that there are lead service lines. That needs to be mitigated. I do not think it should be on the backs of us and the taxpayers of the city of Dubuque to get all that done. We need assistance to get it done. So I'm hopeful that we can create a better partnership to do that with our federal government. But in the meantime, thank you for informing us about it, and thank you for doing all the work that you're doing. We sincerely appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thank you all for your support as we work through these challenges and identify plans to remediate them. So, and again, I thank you to the budget team for a very challenging year, and they were phenomenal to work with and support us. So, yeah, appreciate it.
And tell your son congrats on the great game.
Oh, I will.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to our third public hearing of the evening, which is water and resource recovery. So we'll do a switch over here again. I think we need walk-up music next year. I think it'd be a good idea. If everybody wants to choose their own tunes, something to keep things going. You can throw the powder in the air, when you walk out, Darren. And we're ready whenever you are.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City staff. I'm Darren Meering. I'm the Water and Resource Recovery Center Director. I'd like to also recognize some others from the Water and Resource Recovery Center team here tonight. Got Administrative Support Specialist Gerald Pregler. Got Maintenance Supervisor Wayne Paulsine, Lab Supervisor Michaela Tully, and Industrial Pretreatment Coordinator John Wiley. Tonight I'll be walking through the FY26 budget for the Water Research Recovery Center, but before I get into the details, I want to begin with talking more about why we exist. It's easy to overlook things that happen quietly in the background, the work that becomes routine, expected, even invisible, but oftentimes it's those behind-the-scene efforts that make a big difference. You can't see the sanitary sewer in this photo, but it's there. So much of what we do goes unnoticed, and that's kind of by design. So that's how you know it's working. But just because you can't see something doesn't make it any less essential. In 19th century, American cities experienced devastating cholera outbreaks. Tens of thousands died because wastewater wasn't properly managed and water wasn't properly treated. And according to a story in the Telegraph Herald that struck in the summer of 1833 with estimated 50 residents died, cholera struck again in 1849. 1866, there's calling for building a sewer system. And in 1955, the city opened its first wastewater treatment facility. Thankfully, we no longer see such outbreaks because of the behind-the-scenes work that we collectively do in the engineering department, the public works department, and the Water and Resource Recovery Center, funded by the sanitary sewer utility fee. Every time a new business is created or an existing business expands, every time a child plays in a creek or an angler drops the line in the creek, the sanitary sewer helps provide for a safe outcome. To provide for that safe outcome, to construct sanitary sewers and maintain those sewers, and to treat wastewater at the Water and Resource Recovery Center, the Dubuque citizens pay, the average Dubuque household pays about $59 or $54.82 currently. That's proposed to increase by $4.91 to go to $59.73 in FY26, representing a 6% rate increase, again, for the average household in Dubuque. But again, this is a fee. You pay for what you use. So if you use less water, you generate less wastewater, you'll pay for less. So for lower consumption households like mine, an empty nester, we don't use 6,000 gallons per month. So if we only use 3,000, or people like that, or households like mine, we're probably only paying about $27.40 a month. And that increase will be about $2.50 in FY26 for those households. The city also offers income qualified residents a reduction in monthly fees for up to 50%, which again would reduce that amount for an average household to roughly about $30 a month. We always try to benchmark ourselves, comparing our rates to other cities in Iowa. Again, based on the average use of 6,000 gallons per month. Dubuque's fee is roughly 18% higher than the average of the 10 other largest cities in Iowa. But there are unique differences between the city of Dubuque and other various cities. For example, the city of Council Bluffs utilizes a local option sales tax to fund sanitary sewer improvements. And of course, that keeps their sanitary sewer rates artificially low. Dubuque's sanitary sewer fee funds 100% of the costs associated with constructing, maintaining, and operating our collection system and our treatment system. Another difference in Dubuque is what makes Dubuque Dubuque, the oldest settlement in Iowa with our bluffs on the Mississippi making things more expensive. The rock bluffs are a beautiful feature of our city, but those rock features extend into the ground. And so you don't have to dig very far to hit rock when you're excavating, and that makes for increased costs when you're installing sanitary sewers. So a place like Iowa City wouldn't have to deal with a rock excavation to the extent that we do here in Dubuque. Again, because of our terrain, Dubuque has more sanitary sewer lift stations. Even though Cedar Rapids has twice the number of miles of sanitary sewer, they have about a half the number of lift stations. And there are significant costs associated with these lift stations, from construction costs to maintenance costs and operational costs. Just as an example, it costs the city roughly $20,000 a month in electricity costs alone to run these 21 lift stations. And while it's best to have a system that wastewater drains to the treatment facility by gravity, Dubuque's terrain doesn't always allow for that. Wastewater must be kind of pumped up and around and over bluffs to make it work. And so what's special about a lift station? Well, just give an example here. Terminal Street Lift Station is one of our more prominent, important lift stations near the Julian Dubuque Bridge there by Highway 20. But it basically has two 300 horsepower pumps. It can pump about 11,000 gallons per minute. And at peak times, it can pump about 13.4 0.4 million gallons per day. One of the pumps shown in the middle here can cost about $250,000. And if we were to order one today, we might get it in a year, you know, as far as lead time. So very unique, expensive equipment. Pictured here is the motor control center that powers the 300 horsepower pumps, and they can draw over like 220 kilowatts of electricity. For context, I know it's not a great example, but a sump pump you might have in your home is probably a half a horsepower and would run on 1 kilowatt as far as power goes. So these facilities they're also backed up with generators because if power runs out on one of these facilities and it goes without power for an hour, maybe longer, the wastewater will back up into the system, eventually backing up into the street or in someone's home, obviously creating a very safe and unsafe environment. As is typical, this lift station uses a wet well, dry well design with 2 underground chambers. This photo is trying to capture that, a picture down into the dry well there that houses the large pumps. But this just, again, creates maintenance challenges because sometimes if you're going to the wet well, it's a confined space because of the limited access. You're also dealing with kind of hazardous conditions with high humidity and corrosive gases. So it just means we have the extra safety precautions that go along with maintaining these structures. Another thing that impacts the differences in utility charged by various cities is fees received from industries. Like the city of Cedar Rapids collects significantly more revenue from industries, really reducing the burden on their residential ratepayers. Another fee comparison to other cities in Iowa, this time we're limiting to those cities that own and operate a wastewater facility in their city. So this comparison shows that the average rate increase over the past 6 years, and including the proposed 9% rate increase in FY26, the average annual rate increase for Dubuque is the 4th highest or 5th lowest in 6 years, very close to the median. One thing the cities with the highest average annual rate increases have in common is that they're all making investments in their sewer treatment or collection systems. Number 1 on that list is Sioux City, who is slowly making progress on $465 million in improvements on their wastewater treatment plant. Number 2, Council Bluffs, a few years ago, had to come up with $10 million to fund unplanned sewer collapses due to flooding. Number 3 on that list, Cedar Rapids, who is also proposing a 9% rate increase this year, is also underway upgrading modernizing their wastewater treatment facility. And then number 5 on the list is Waterloo is, planning to spend $100 million on sewer plan. Number 4 on that list is the city of Dubuque, and we are also investing in our sewer collection system. In fact, the city is preparing to spend $131 million over 5 years in sewer and treatment system upgrades. The proposed fees represent an investment in the future of Dubuque. The proposed fees will safeguard public health by preventing sanitary sewer overflows and ensures our infrastructure remains viable and reliable in the face of both growth and aging components. It'll help us to continue to build a safe and resilient and sustainable community. That $131 million investment includes funding for replacing the Kerper Boulevard lift station with a new one that's currently under construction, and that will provide the capacity needed to support and accommodate the $45 million private investment in a residential complex where the old building or Bowling and Beyond site was on Hawthorne Street. The $131 million in investment includes funding for sewer upgrades on Schmidt Island to accommodate the investments being made there to add a hotel and an amphitheater. Those sewer improvements are under design and to be completed in time to accommodate the private investment. It includes reinvesting in the 42-inch force main that delivers sewer from that Terminal Street lift station to the Wastewater Resource Recovery Center along the banks of the Mississippi River. As this photo shows, parts of that sewer are now exposed. This is a high water mark there. And so we're actually partnering with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers because they are also interested in stabilizing the banks of the Mississippi. So in this case, the city is going to be funding contributing about $3 million of an $8 million project, an investment again in this force main that hope to serve our community for decades to come. It also provides for updating the electrical controls at the Water Resource Recovery Center, which I'll talk more about in a little bit. And it includes funding for investing in the sanitary sewer and interceptor sewers that have served our community for the past 40 to 60 years. The Catfish Creek sanitary sewer shed here, essentially it collects all the wastewater from the properties within this sewer shed and delivers it to the wastewater or the Water Resource Recovery Center. Currently, all of that wastewater flows to the Catfish Creek lift station, and then that pushes the wastewater to the Water Resource Recovery Center where it's treated. The reason these sewers are nearing or at their capacity is because they were designed more than 50 years ago. And sewers are designed to look ahead like 20 years at what flows you'll need to design them for. And so these sewers were designed, from 1960 to 1980, these sewers were fine, they were adequate. From 1980 to 2000, they were adequate. But from 2000 to 2020, land developed for residential, commercial, industrial use in the Catfish Creek sewer shed increased by 2,220 acres, basically a 50% increase in an area served by that sanitary sewer system. And that explosive growth has added homes and for families, created space for new businesses, and brought jobs to the community, but it also places substantial pressure on our collection system, not originally designed for this level of wastewater. And that's why the city, a couple of years ago, launched the Sanitary Sewer Asset Management Program, a comprehensive data-driven plan that helps prioritize projects based on risk and system performance. It includes the development of a hydraulic model that we're able to use to identify essentially pinch points or deficiencies in the system. It allows us to make targeted improvements to the sewer system. And the good news is while this study is still underway, and engineering will talk more about it on Thursday, it is already providing information that we're using to address the issue today. The $26 million investment in the new Old Mill Road lift station, now under construction, is to be completed by 2026. That's going to increase the pumping capacity of the Catfish Creek sewer shed to be able to accommodate wastewater for the next 20 to 30 years. In total, the city is looking at investing an estimated $83.8 million in improvements to serve the Catfish Creek sewer shed between now and FY29. I mentioned that the Old Mill Road lift station was under construction. The second phase of that, well, there was a public hearing last night. That's in the public bidding stage. And both those projects are intended to be done by the end of calendar 2026. And then these other improvements in the sewer shed will follow that. So why now? The answer is that we're kind of at a crossroads as a community. We need to expand capacity so property can move forward with building homes and growing business and creating jobs. And that demand is here now. And without infrastructure in place, we risk holding back that momentum. At the same time, that infrastructure, our system is aging, and we see early signs of wear in key areas that we have a chance to get ahead of it before failures become costly. Acting now ensures continued reliability for our infrastructure and that we already depend on every day. And finally, delaying these investments risks something even more critical, the health and safety of our community. Our ability to safely manage wastewater is fundamental, as I mentioned before, for public health. And it's about what we do now to secure our future. It's also prudent to act now because postponing infrastructure increases costs. As assets age and deteriorate, emergency repairs become more expensive. Delays can drive up construction costs due to inflation, and interest rates may not always be favorable, depending on what happens in the future. So making investments today ensures that we borrow when rates are more relatively favorable. It also puts us in a position to secure historic levels of federal and state infrastructure funding, such as the $5 million I mentioned for the 42-inch force main project. And that can dramatically reduce local cost burdens and accelerate critical upgrades. To make these investments more economical, the city uses state revolving fund loans versus general obligation debt. I know Chris went over a little bit this, but it's important to repeat some of the reasons why we do this. SRF debt just comes at a much more favorable interest rate. It allows for interest-free planning and design loans for up to 3 years. And you only pay interest after expending the funds versus GO bonds where all the proceeds are provided up front and interest starts accruing immediately. SRF can also be used for longer term options of interest-only payments, and they generally have lower bond counsel fees. And as Chris talked about, there are some disadvantages. SRF funding originated from the federal government. There's some federal provisions that may apply depending on the project type, such as Davis-Bacon or prevailing wages or the Build America, Buy America, which both can increase construction costs. The other disadvantage of SRF are more related to schedule. Most noteworthy is the environmental review. Essentially, this funding originated from the federal government and it's administered by the state. So the Iowa Department of Natural Resources has to treat this like it's federal money and ensure that no unnecessary harm comes to a historic property, and that includes archaeological resources. So depending on the complexity of the process or the project, that environmental review could take as little as 90 days to maybe 18 months. So for example, the Old Mill Road lift station was delayed because the force main had to go through the historic town of Rockdale that was washed away in the late 1800s. And so as going through that process, they were able to adjust the alignment, avoid the archaeological resources they found during that process, and proceed with the project. But that did delay moving forward with the project. But for example, the industrial control project that we have took like 90 days to go through the environmental review because everything's been previously disturbed and there's no historic nature to those improvements. So again, that $30 to $60 fee for the average household provides planned investments in the sanitary sewer collection system, which engineering will speak more about on Thursday night. It also provides for maintaining the sanitary sewer collection system, and Public Works Director Ariel Swift will go into more details, but Public Works plays a critical role in maintaining the city's 300 plus 25 miles of sewer and the 7,500 maintenance access holes. They do things like cleaning and jetting of the sewer systems, and things like even just like root removal. So, without their work funded again by the sanitary sewer utility, sewer systems clog with roots, debris, fat soils, and grease, and that can cause wastewater to back up into the street or even into basements. And now we get to what I believe to be the good stuff. I'm a little biased here, but now I'm going to talk more about the Water Resource Recovery Center. I'd like to start first with sharing the mission that guides us at the Water Resource Recovery Center. We created it together this past year as a team. We talked about what motivates us, what we value, and how we want to show up for each other, for the public, and for the environment. And the statement captures not just what we do, but who we are. It reflects our shared commitment to the public health, the Mississippi River, and our community. And it's the lens through which we view the work, including how we build our budget. Who are we? Well, in short, we're people who make a difference every day. Every Saturday, every Sunday, Christmas, every Easter, we show up. More specifically, operators, lab staff, work every day to make sure that facility is operational. On a personal, every morning I feel incredibly grateful to go to work at the Water Resource Recovery Center because every day affords me the opportunity to make a difference. But it's also because I get to work with these incredible people who every day bring an impressive level of technical skill and expertise to what they do. People who approach challenges with curiosity and creativity, and most importantly, people who are committed not just to the work, but to each other. And I want to thank them all personally for their commitment to our mission. Our department is staffed by 17.25 full-time equivalents. One of the things this depicts is that you kind of break those positions down a little bit between skilled trade and operations positions. There are about 11.25 FTEs under that category, and then about 6 FTEs for professional and technical positions. But you'll notice that some of these positions are kind of a combination of the two, and that's because we run a tight ship. We don't have dedicated staff to sweep and mop the floors or take out the trash. That's something that our staff do. We clean the bathrooms and we share these duties together, and we're proud to do that. It's another part of how we take care of the city, the facility the city has entrusted to us. Just the same way we care for our treatment system, we take responsibility for the space we work in it every day. We have multiple service areas from wastewater treatment to laboratory analysis, and we serve customers from the tri-state region, from sometimes even farther than 30 miles away. I'm going to touch a little bit on each of these kind of service areas. So first, the federal regulations require us to have an industrial pretreatment program to ensure that pollutants received at the Water Resource Recovery Center do not interfere with operations of the facility or cause a permit violation. The program entails issuing permits to specific industries and then monitoring performance and permit compliance. About 2.5 years ago, the United States EPA inspected the city's industrial pretreatment program, and they had identified several deficiencies that we've been working to address. And through the work of Industrial Pretreatment Coordinator John Wiley, who joined the team in December of 2024, with assistance from others, we expect to be fully compliant by the end of the current fiscal year. Keeping fats, oils, and grease, or FOG for short, out of the sanitary sewer system is important to prevent clogging pipes and sanitary sewer overflows. And our FOG-related work at the Water Resource Center is twofold. One, we issue permits to food establishments, and then we monitor those permits for compliance. Essentially, we make sure that they maintain their grease interceptor sewer systems by cleaning them enough frequently so that FOG does not get down into the sewer system and create issues. The second way we serve that program is by actually receiving and treating fats, oils, and grease at the Water Resource Recovery Center. Again, this is just another example of one way we help keep the public safe by this FOG program, again, preventing wastewater from backing up into households, the basements. What we're most well known for is wastewater treatment. We utilize physical, biological, and chemical processes to treat waste, treating about 6.7 million gallons of wastewater per day. And we remove about 94% of the pollutant load before discharging it to the Mississippi River. But as our name indicates, we do more than simply treating wastewater. We recover resources for further use. Some of that treated water is used at the facility for other processes. We create nutrient-dense biosolids, which are used as agricultural soil amendments on farm fields. And the biogas that are produced by the anaerobic digesters is further cleaned by a private partner and injected into the natural gas pipeline as renewable natural gas. Our maintenance staff, supported by plant operators, perform planned maintenance on pumps and motors, valves and equipment. They also have to make unplanned repairs to keep the facility in operation and functioning, and making sure our wastewater system functions. That staff also maintains the 21 lift stations throughout town that I discussed previously. And we maintain a state-certified environmental lab that serves the needs of multiple city departments. Being certified really means that we've gone through the rigor of meeting the Iowa Department of Natural Resources requirements. And what it really indicates is that when we analyze and provide environmental results, those results are legally defensible by whoever we're treating that for or providing those analysis for. But in addition to testing for process controls and serving other departments, we also serve the general public, analyzing water samples from private wells and also water samples from private wastewater treatment facilities like lagoon systems. Moving on to some challenges and opportunities in the current fiscal year. For the second year in a row, unfortunately, we've had to deal with the health of our anaerobic digesters. This time it was due to an explosion at our facility in early December. The digesters have been fully functional now for a couple of months, so that's a good thing. We have been working on equipment reliability issues. We're about 13 years now coming up on when we completed the last upgrades at the Water Resource Recovery Center. Certain components even predated those upgrades. And so proposed CIP projects like the industrial controls helps us to improve that reliability. We also have funding for bar screens that are shown here for making improvements on those. And then we're also in the beginning stages of selecting and implementing a computerized maintenance management system to help us better manage our planned maintenance work. Struvites remained something we're dealing with. It increases costs in dealing with wastewater. This photo, it just kind of shows what that looks like. Struvite's really just a mineral deposit that builds up inside these pipes. And just like when your arteries get clogged, it makes your heart work harder. Clogged pipes makes all the pumps and equipment work harder at our facility. One example is our digesters. We just pulled out a couple of the mixers out of there, and those are being impacted by the struvite, and so we need to kind of make expensive repairs on those shafts to put them back into service. But we are looking at, and part of an improvement package that was approved last year and reflected in this budget, we do have money to dose with ferric chloride in the system, and we're still evaluating the best way to do that, to reduce that struvite formation. And then one of the other things we're doing, working this past year and currently, is just improving our safety program at the Water Resource Recovery Center, just making sure that our staff are safe while they perform their duties. And as we go about our work at the Water Resource Recovery Center, we always concern ourselves with odor. Just a little background on odor. You know, there's always going to be odors at the treatment facility, as it's an odor as a byproduct of treating wastewater. But even though making sure we comply with Federal Clean Water Act requirements will always be the priority, everything we do operationally, we consider the impacts to odor. And we take steps when we can to minimize them. And it's unfortunate this past year we've been doing a lot of things, making progress on that odor reduction plan, but neighborhoods and surrounding neighbors would never know that, because we've had a couple of unusual situations like this last year. This issue really emanated some really objectionable odors last summer that you would never know we even had an odor reduction plan until we resolved this last year. And then again, I mentioned the gas leak caused an explosion in early December. Thankfully, no injuries, but it did disrupt our solids treatment process. We weren't able to clean the digester that we had planned for this year, that would also help reduce odors. And also, because we had to handle the solids a little bit differently, it also resulted in increased odors. But we have taken some steps in the last week or so to try to mitigate those, and so we think they'll have those under control so we can get a better handle on odors. Just a reminder, we began dosing actually in 2023 at the headworks, basically trying to reduce hydrogen sulfide levels, which is the most prominent gas that produces odor at a wastewater facility. And we found some real success there. And then this last year, we tried the ferric chloride dosing between the anaerobic digesters and the centrifuge. And that had some odor improvements, but really didn't provide us with the struvite reduction that we had hoped for. So we're going to be switching that out, and we're actually going to start dosing that location again with hydrogen peroxide, which is more economical. So we still should get the odor reduction benefits of dosing there, but we have to look somewhere else for the struvite reduction. And so early this year, we installed a new dosing port so that we can dose ferric chloride directly into the anaerobic digesters, again, to not only attack struvite formation in the system, but also reduce hydrogen sulfide in the digesters. And in fact, they're on site this week rerouting those pipes. The one that used to go ferric, they're going to switch that out with hydrogen peroxide and then running a new line to the dosing port we had installed. So we'll be dosing again this month at the two new locations as well. So that'll be 3 locations we'll be dosing. Other things we're doing as far as odor, this is another example. So the drying pad, we discussed this a little bit last year. One of the things that we did is there's a hoop building shown in the back there. It's essentially, it kind of outlived its useful life. And so we had that removed to increase the space we have for staging on the drying pad. We also were able to purchase the compact track loader. That was an improvement package request in this year. So we replaced that, and that allows us to provide maintenance much more readily and easily, as that equipment is much more better equipped for that purpose. And then also in terms of odor reduction, we're in the midst of a facility plan update. And generally speaking, that facility plan is really looking at, what we're going to do in the future in terms of treatment that we need to do. As for example, the sewer shed is producing more wastewater we must treat here, so we need to consider that. Regulatory changes, emerging technologies, to look at what we need to do with the treatment plant for the next 20 to 30 years. And one of the things that we are incorporating into that plan is considering odor as part of that process to make sure that every proposed improvement that we make considers odor. So again, have that long-term odor mitigation strategy be incorporated into any and all improvement recommendations that come out of that plan development. We do get periodic updates on the odor issues. You can find it at the city website, City of Dubuque/odor control. Just moving on to some other current initiatives, we have a capital improvement program project, high-strength waste receiving and storage. And really what this is for is making sure that we can better meter waste into the treatment system. And how we're going to be doing it is adding some storage tanks. Essentially, when waste is hauled to a facility right now, it goes into a common tank, and that tank is continuously pumped into the digesters. So if you drop off a load of specific waste, it's almost like, you know, giving a candy bar. It's just a high, and it can really spike up the activity in the anaerobic digesters and essentially give them a sour tummy, if you will. It makes them go sour, is the saying. And so these tanks will help us ensure that doesn't happen. Loads can be dropped off at any time, but we can meter that waste into the facility 24 hours a day at a controlled rate. The project also involves improvements to the septage receiving station that's shown in that picture in the bottom left, upgrading the fats, oils, and grease receiving station as well. This project is about a $7.3 million project that's intended to be funded using SRF loan fees. And again, those debt payments are intended to be paid back using the tipping fees paid for by hauled waste generators. The city did submit a community project funding application through Congresswoman Ashley Hinson's office in the amount of $5.2 million. And so if this is awarded, it would offset costs those local haulers would have to pay for the project. The FY26 CIP budget includes $427,000 for general equipment upkeep and replacement. And while the total isn't noteworthy, it does represent continued investment in our facility, making sure that the systems continue to work as expected, work as needed. The industrial control CIP project will help us address an ongoing electrical control problem. The issue here is that, you know, normally these electrical control systems are usually good for 20 to 30 years, and we are about 15 going on the 20-year life of our system when COVID-19 hits. And in addition, there was the supply chain issues, you remember, at that same time. And so what companies did is, instead of producing this older technology, they put their resources into the newer technology, and they no longer support the system we have. So it was like prematurely done away with, and so that's why we had to act more quickly here. And this has really created some issues at our facility. And so the improvement package here will make sure that all those controls will be done by the summer of 2027. We'll actually be ready to go out for bid here on the project here this summer. Another thing just to point out is, again, you know, we talk in the engineering, I'll talk about, you know, plans for the sewer system. Again, our facility plan update is a similar undertaking as far as our wastewater treatment facility. So again, we'll look at our design flow right now is 9.1 MGD, and currently we're sitting about 6.7, so about 63% of our capacity. And you can see similar things about as far as the pollutants loads that we're getting right now. So we're about 60 to 70% as we go. And you'll note here too that the last facility plan was produced with, and it looked at treatment needs through planning year 2030. So we're getting close to 2030 here. And so that's why it's time to really look at this again. And that'll really inform what we need to do in terms of nutrient reduction, plant upgrades going forward. And it's not like it's gonna be something we're gonna need tomorrow. We'll be able to plan for it, you know, over a 10-year period. But again, we want to be prepared for those improvements and have them in place when we need them. Another one is proposed for this budget is an odor monitoring system. Really what we're proposing is a system that would include the installation of what they call electronic sensors, odor sensors, or often referred to as e-nose sensors, devices around the perimeter. These sensors are designed to detect and measure odor kind of at the fence line that I've kind of outlined here in red, to help us understand better where odors may be leaving the property, really change how we look at it today. we can look at how much hydrogen sulfide is in the primary clarifier system, but that's not really telling us how much hydrogen sulfide is leaving the system. And so really what this system hopefully will do will help us evaluate the effectiveness of our odor control efforts. That, as the saying goes, you can't manage what you can't measure. So hopefully this will allow us to get some actual measurements of what's leaving our site. We have 9 improvement package requests recommended for funding as outlined here. I'll talk more in depth just about the 2 with the highest price tag. So the Water Resource Recovery Center intern package would be just that, add an intern for our staff. And the real benefit of this intern position would help for helping with the significant projects we have that'll be under contract and moving forward this coming year or during this year. Really, what interns help is they take some burden off of the current staff, but they also they're a much more cost-effective way to manage workload and also take the demand off what we need to hire consultants for. Because sometimes if we need to provide information for a consultant and we're busy doing other things and we don't have time to get that information, sometimes we'd have to rely on a consultant. Hey, we don't have time. We're going to have to ask you to do it. So this is a way to really get a more cost-effective way to move that type of issue along at a more cost-effective manner. We're also a request to improve our efficiencies when it comes to the data management and essentially the program management of our industrial pretreatment program. Right now, a significant portion of staff time is spent on manual data entry and tracking down documents, compiling reports. This software will automate routine tasks, reducing administrative burdens, and really free up time for more high-value work, especially in the field. With gained staff time, we can shift the focus to proactive work, getting out into the community more, working with businesses and improve how they comply. Earlier this spring, one of the city's sanitary sewer lift stations experienced a failure, and when the maintenance staff went out and inspected it, they found that the pumps were caked with debris and grit, and that's what caused them to fail and cause the station to go down and result in a wastewater overflow. So in the past, this type of event would have just been prompted by an immediate response by a maintenance crew. They would, get out there like they did this year, but then they would move on to the next issue, repairing the next big thing. But thanks to the structure and the staffing that we have and for the industrial pretreatment program, this time we were able to go a step further. So industrial pretreatment coordinator John Wiley was able to take the lead investigating the source of the debris. He contacted each of the businesses and spoke to them about their operation and process, and he was able to pinpoint the source of that material, a local car wash. And rather than speculate or issue penalties, John worked directly with that business, and alongside environmental coordinator Jason Mooring, they conducted a site inspection. And during that visit, they discovered that a section of their grit removal system had been plumbed incorrectly. So initially, the thought was this business might have to involve, costly increases to their maintenance schedule. But through this cooperative approach, the issue was resolved with minor repairs. And again, as a result, the business is now properly discharging the system. The city has prevented future damage downstream lift station. And it just highlights the example of investing tools that improve our efficiency to allow us to be more proactive. I remember last year when I was giving this presentation on the FY25 budget, I said that I was confident that with industrial pretreatment John Wiley, we would have the best pretreatment program in the state. And this is what I was talking about, being able to work with companies and businesses to bring them into compliance for the benefit of all. Moving on to performance measures, we continue to meet our goals in terms of pollutant removal as required by our MPDS permit. Our fog program has been fairly successful, limiting the number of overflow caused by fog. But this is another area that, we only deal with food establishments. There's a heck of a lot of fats, oils, and grease that comes down residential sewer systems that aren't regulated. And what more time would allow us to do is to proactively work and get information out to the public about the importance, not only to our system, but their system, because if you pour that bacon grease down your drain, you might think it goes down, but it solidifies in your drain. It can cause your sewer to clog up and back up, and that's 100% on the homeowner to take care of. So it's the benefit of everybody to not put that grease down the faucet or the sink. In terms of certified operators, we filled our 2 vacant positions in February a year ago, and they're gaining the experience they need, and they're getting the training so that they're on schedule to achieve their grade 2 wastewater certification within the 2-year time period. In terms of electricity, we made huge gains in FY23, and this is actually a new performance measure that we added this year. And it's really measuring the energy use per million gallon treated, you know, because the amount of flow can fluctuate from year to year, and obviously the more flow, the more electricity we're going to use, but this kind of normalizes it by per gallon. And you can see the improvement we made. We almost reduced our electricity use by 20% from FY23 to FY24. A large part of that was dealing with electrical control issues. It took us over a year to kind of figure out. We essentially had to run these bar screens nonstop, 100% of the time, continuously. And they're not supposed to do that. They're supposed to be able to run alternatively, turn off. But because of the electrical control system and finding parts and troubleshooting the issue, it took us a long time to get that figured out. But that's just one example how we're able to improve efficiency and reduce our costs at our facility. So even though the cost of electricity is projected to go up in FY26, our request for FY26 is less than it was in FY25. And we also have been improving the reliability of our lift stations, but we do have more work to do there. And finally, our environmental lab continues to collect and analyze samples as required by the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. And finally, I'd like to close out the presentation by showing a video produced by the city's amazing communications office that provides a wonderful insight into why, who, and what we do at the Water and Resource Recovery Center.
This is definitely not just a job for me. When we discharge our water, it essentially enters back into the environment. Cities downstream of us use it for their drinking water. Residents recreate in it, animals live in it, and it becomes part of our water cycle again. So the work we do is critically important for our environment. My name is Michaela Tully, and I am the laboratory supervisor of the Environmental Monitoring Lab at the Water and Resource Recovery Center for the City of Dubuque. Our role is critical. We serve public health and also environmental protection. Not very many people think about what happens when they flush their toilets or take a shower or do their dishes. But without the Water and Resource Recovery Center, that wastewater would have nowhere to go. And it would be untreated, unchecked, and it would just kind of flow freely into the environment. In the lab, we like to think of ourselves as the messengers. The laboratory produces all the results that we report to our regulatory bodies. So we collect samples throughout the process of wastewater treatment and do permit testing for our discharge permit and make sure that it's clean and ready to be discharged into the Mississippi River. We also test drinking water. So we will service different public water suppliers, including the City of Dubuque, to do bacteriological testing to make sure that the water supply is safe to drink. Knowing that our work kind of stays behind the scenes and quiet is a reflection that everything is going smooth. We have a great team. We're always problem solving, always thinking on our feet, because we'll produce a result that might be new to us that we haven't seen, and we get to discuss about what's going on and the health of the plant. And it's just an exciting job. No day is the same. Growing up in Dubuque, I was always very proud of my hometown, and I've always felt called to protect our environment. We kind of do the work that nobody thinks about that makes our city great. So I feel very proud to hold this position.
So I guess in closing, I want to thank City Manager Mike Van Milligan for his continued leadership. I want to thank the Budget Office, Joe and Laura and Jenny for all the help they provided this year. Very challenging budget. as they usually are. And I also want to thank the City Council for your continued support for the important work we do at the Water Resource Recovery Center. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thanks, Darren. Well, we're in a public hearing to discuss the Water and Resource Recovery Center fiscal year 26 budget. Do we have any public input on this item? Seeing none here. Anything virtually? Nope. Thank you. All right, back to us for discussion then. Ms. Farber.
So Darren, I want to thank you. It has been almost 4 years since we've had the odor abatement issue, and since I receive calls, emails on a very regular basis, even most recently. And it's kind of up and down, and like the weather, if you will, in terms of the ability to be outside versus not, and especially in the area by the highway there going toward Mount Carmel. It's most severe there than it is further down on Grandview. But I am ever so impressed by the fact that you're now working on an odor monitoring system. And I think that is a great indicator for us to be able to determine, as you said, the perimeter, and to really scientifically get the data to measure what the outflow is versus what's internal to the system, which you hear and see and smell every day. So I really know that the residents in this area are very grateful for that, and I know that they realize there are some days that are more comfortable and then others that are not. But I just wanted to give you a shout out for that, and also for your website updates and for your personal communications too. I know a few of those residents who share with me the fact that they are in communication with you, and how that transparency really helps them, although they're really looking forward to the day when it's just more efficient and more regulated, if you will. So just wanted to give you a shout out for you and your team. It was a great presentation. You do a lot for the city. And I remember when I went down to your center for my tour, how impressed I was with what was going on down there. So thank you very much, and hopefully this gets less and less as we continue through the year here. Thank you.
Mr. Jones.
Where are we at on recovery of the damages that we suffered from the electrical installer's error that started the instability of the digesters and caused the onset of the odor issue a few years ago?
Yeah, so we're still kind of assessing those damages and working with legal on what the next steps would be. We had sent a notice to the firm and put them on notice. So the next steps are going to be to kind of quantify what we think are appropriate damages, because it's, not always clear, but we just want to that's where our next step is.
And I think your priority is in the right place of solving the problems first and cleaning up the liability later. So well done.
Thanks.
Mr. Resnick, and we'll just hit the other side of the table.
Michaela mentioned problem solving, and your whole team does it, not just in the lab there, of course. And she mentioned her team, and you go to every day, what's going to happen. Personally, I'm disappointed in the design of that. A couple of us were here. We had an excellent, top-notch designer come and invested a lot of money in that. And you're showing me, just 15 years later or less, that there is deficiencies in this. The high-strength waste design issue you're now addressing, that should have been taken care of. We asked for, we told them that we were going to do high-strength waste. Why? And like you said, to dump that high-strength waste right in a digester is going to, throw it clear out of whack. I mean, the digesters are not really new situation. They've been since the 90s, I think, right? They still seem very sensitive, that it's not sturdy like everything else. It's not a sturdy system. Almost any little tweak can throws a hissy fit, and then you have to problem solve and try and figure it out. Well, congratulations on the work. I'm just, and the planned obsolescence with the electronics and switches, it's intentionally hurried obsolescence. Yeah. I mean, that's not great for our citizens. And so again, what you're saddled with is the well-intentioned. I tell you what, we tried to make the best, sewage treatment plant, wastewater recovery center that we could. and it shouldn't be falling apart. And thanks to your whole team for doing everything you can. And my question is, what can you do with the data from the e-nose? So you know it's escaping this way or that way. What are you going to do? Blow fans on it or change it? I mean, what can you do with that data?
Well, I think the most important thing is, we can measure, like I said, what's the hydrogen sulfide levels in, say, the primary clarifiers, but that's not an indication of what's leaving the site. So we can be patting ourselves on the back saying, hey, we're reducing 50% reduction, but we really don't know how well the citizenry are benefiting from it. So that'll really be able for us to measure, again, how well are we doing? Do we need to do more? One of the things, when we talk about dosing, talked about an optimal level of dosing. At some point you get the point of no return where you can just double the amount you're putting in there, but your benefit maybe is 10% more. But again, it's just looking at all those things, how we might do things differently. One day we might think it's fine, and there's a lot of kind of odor coming out of here. Just walking around the facility itself provides some of that on a kind of a anecdotal level. If I walk by something, boy, that smells really bad today. That's one thing, but if you have that data that tracks it in real time, then it doesn't take me to have to leave my desk and leave the building and go out and find something. It'll provide a more reliable indication, measurable indication of that, hey, there's odor coming off here and we should look into what we can do to potentially address it.
I understand the perimeter, but a lot of that is attached to warm, moist air that goes straight up. How is that to be measured?
Well, we won't be able to catch everything. It's a step we can do to capture some of the information. But there will be situations where, depending on the airflow or how gusty it is, how well that'll function. But it's on most days it should be, provide us some with useful information.
Great, a lot of great information and so many wins that you guys are doing. Just a lot of pluck in your whole group, and I appreciate that. And I think you're looking at all the right things to do to get this thing, the plant, as I've heard it called, get the plant working up the best efficiency. You have some great employees, some great colleagues, some teamwork who can get that. Now, is the lab a good size? At least is in good shape. It seemed awfully crowded. You got a lot of stuff going on in that lab. I remember when we replaced the lab, we doubled the size and we made it a lot better. Is it enough?
Yeah, the video is a little deceiving. There's room for them, and they have their own dance, as I understand it, when they work side by side. But there's certain areas that they use more for certain testing, but they have plenty of room to expand. In fact, when we're doing the struvite control work, another outside person is coming and using additional lab space for their work without interfering. So there is definitely plenty of lab room.
Great. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Wethel.
Well, I feel like I read a lot of your emails. And I just want to say, first of all, to the residents of Dubuque, especially those I serve in Ward 4, who I feel like are most affected by our odor concerns, I wish that we could move faster. It is a quality of life issue. I take it seriously, and I have confidence that your organization, your department takes it seriously, and I am grateful for that. It's not that I cast blame that at some point we didn't, but this is a problem that we need to take seriously, and I believe we have. So thank you. I want to commend you, specifically, Darren, you on your responsiveness, your incredible knowledge, but your kindness. You come at this problem with people who are very upset, understandably so, but you are always a calm in the storm. And so I commend you on that. You and John both, I know, have had a lot of correspondence with folks, whether it's over the fats, oil, and grease distribution, but you're often, so often, taking into consideration not just the safety of our staff, but the staff of those who are making drop-offs and deliveries and trying to coordinate folks, and just going out of your way to really make sure that that is something that we take seriously as a service. And so I salute all of you. I know you're all a very important part of that. My question relates to the odor sensors. So the odor sensors previously were text messages sent to me or phone calls to me that I then emailed to the city manager or text to him, and then I think he got a hold of you. Right. That odor sensor evaluation process is probably less efficient than what we're looking at, and I'm grateful for it. But I am curious as to whether or not there are areas of the neighborhoods most affected by odor in which we could actually put those sensors not just around the Water Resource Recovery Center, but actually out into neighborhoods. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's something we've considered and still as an option. There are portable sensors that you can install around, like the ones here will be probably hardwired into our system, into our data collection systems. We can have that real-time data. Obviously, if it's more remote or on Grandview or something, that wouldn't be the case, but that's definitely something we can look into as part of this and always evaluate ways to improve. I mean, this is just a starting point with these, e-noses. If we need to, if we're missing some data from some areas, we're open to expanding that and moving things around to find out where they would be the most beneficial.
And I want folks at home to know also that it is not just that we're measuring to know if we smell.
Right.
We're measuring to know if our treatment options of what we are trialing are working. And so if they are not working on a day at certain humidities or certain temperatures, we can then start to anticipate, well, if we treat more with hydrogen peroxide at this site during this temperature and this location, then maybe we can stay ahead of odors in the future. I sense that that's hopefully the purpose in our odor sensor program.
Yep, yeah.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Ms. Rizzo.
Darren, thank you. I liked the introduction to your presentation because you helped us understand how Dubuque is like other communities in the large investments that people are making in their sewer systems. But I also liked how you helped us understand that how Dubuque is different from some of those other communities. So it really helped me to get a perspective on where we are and kind of set the tone to understand some of the increases that we are going to be facing as residents. Certainly no one likes to have an increase on their bill, but when you can really understand that, number one, we aren't the only community that's facing these kind of challenges, and number two, here in Dubuque, we have certain unique challenges that are only experienced here because of the physical qualities of our community. So I appreciate your setting the tone for that before you got into the details so that we could better understand what might be coming. Sure. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead, Mr. Wright.
John, how many lift stations again?
We have 21 lift stations.
And Cedar Rapids only has 4?
No, they have like 12.
Okay.
But Old Mill Road is under construction. That'll be number 22.
Okay, so we'll have 22 lift stations, and and Cedar Rapids has like 12.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Darren, can you go to slide number 45? It's your mission statement slide. This is just important. Everybody needs a mascot, and they've got the best one. I had to point it out. I mean, I saw that, and I'm like, that is absolutely perfect. So go ahead and try to compete with the Water and Resource Recovery Center, but you're going to have trouble doing it because that is a great mascot. I actually don't have any further questions. You answered so many questions in this presentation. This, I think, by far is one of the best descriptions of the challenges you've been up against and the solutions that you're going to look at. You've had some really bad luck. I mean, you had some good luck in that nobody got hurt during that explosion. That was a really scary situation. I'm really glad that everybody's okay. But man, was that some bad luck after already having some bad luck that had to do with things that weren't necessarily entirely under your control. These were things that, working with other parties, as Mr. Jones pointed out, but then other systems, and that's extremely challenging. And that's really frustrating, I think, for you, for everybody. Obviously, the things that Ms. Wethel and Ms. Farber pointed out from a lot of the calls that they receive in particular. But I appreciate that when you have identified a problem, you and your team, you have identified a solution, and you've brought it to us, and you continue to keep on pushing forward. Problem, solution, problem, solution. There is no waiting. There's no lollygagging. You're doing it. So thank you for doing that. We understand, and I am confident as well, you're doing it as fast as you can. So keep it up. Let's please all get through this together. Please, all of us continue to have patience as we do it. And thank you for making sure that you're not just thinking about this from a scientific standpoint, but from a human one too, as Ms. Wethel pointed out. I think it's really important.
You're welcome.
So thank you very much for the presentation. Thanks. All right. Okay, we are on to our final presentation of the evening, the Public Works Department. So thanks everybody for sticking with us. Good evening, Ariel. We're ready when you are.
Good evening. I'm Ariel Swift, Public Works Director here. This is always both sometimes a frightful but also exciting time to be able to present not only to request things, right, and support, but also to really highlight what staff has done throughout the last year. This is the Public Works mission statement. I always say we do everything. I feel like we've got like all of our fingers in all of the pots at all of the same time. But we maintain through preservation, construction, rehabilitation, daily operations, and a lot of people don't realize 24/7 emergency response as well. So if there's a huge summer storm or winter storm or spring storm being flood season, Public Works is there. Normally I don't read slides, well in general, just because lots of words and I'll trip over them, but I feel it is really important with some of the questions and stuff that we've gotten about our current budget and in previous budget presentations. I am going to read our vision statement for Public Works Department. So Public Works will be recognized for its commitment to provide services that meet the needs of Dubuque's community and contribution to an equitable community through innovation, technological advancement, accountable stewardship, responsiveness, and adaptability to our ever-changing community. Our core values down in Public Works is communication, community focus, safety, integrity, and equity. We have a very large staff, over 97 full-time equivalents, and a lot of these you need people looking out for each other's safety, their own safety, being able to communicate, have integrity that I'm not going to be able to be everywhere, the supervisors aren't going to be able to be everywhere, and so hiring staff with that integrity to do the right thing, even when no one's looking, is very important. Agency support as well. The department provides staff support to the Dubuque Metropolitan Solid Waste Agency Board of Directors and landfill and diversion activity. And then Public Works Department leadership team, you can see every single one of them came here today for support. I did let them eat with their families first, so that was good. Hope they got something good. But as I was answering some of the questions that we have received, it made me realize since I started in Public Works in March of 2019, every single one of these positions has overturned. That is significant. And that's not including any of the other changes that we've done, but they've already hit the ground running. I mean, some of the stuff, and we'll get into some of the details later on in the slides, but I'm really proud of this team that we're building. So like I said, over 97 full-time equivalents. 30 sub-activities, those are all the fingers and all the jars, and 5 core areas. So that's going to be our administrative staff, landfill operations, fleet maintenance, field operations, and resource management or solid waste. So different programs that we do, other than everything, just to get a little more specific on certain ones. As Darren was saying, we do a lot of the sanitary sewer maintenance. We have inspected over 78 miles of underground pipe, and this is kind of how that breaks out. 4.5% of that is visual inspection, jet flushing, root foam. We only have 5.36 full-time equivalents out of all of those 97 actually dedicated to sanitary sewer. And what they have to do is manage and maintain over 300 miles of underground infrastructure, over 7,500 access points or manholes, and with a budget of $729,000. That includes the budget to actually have that staff and the benefits to retain and maintain them. There's a lot of coordination with engineering department on once we start finding things, hey, we need to turn this over to them so they can start doing the repairs as funding allows. So root foaming sounds really like, what does that mean? So this is a manhole that's actually off of Asbury Road. And it's right around a bend. It's like really dangerous to like park a vehicle there. So we have to have extra cones and extra people, and we bring in an outside vendor to come in. And this is one that we have to have done every single year. They call it Cousin It, because as you see, it's just growing, and it looks like that every single year. We have cut this thing, we have root foamed it, we have tried to burn it. I mean, it comes back, and we have no idea where it comes from because it's on Asbury Road, and there's a bazillion trees around. But because of maintenance is such a cheaper option, right, a preferred option, preventive maintenance, we're able to do this for $180 a year. Just this one guy. But this is a pretty big, like I said, he grows back every year. I don't know what he's on, but he's on something. We have a jet vac truck that we use. We're able to use that in both sanitary and storm with sanitizing in between. This is a hydraulic spill that they're working to actually hover over the creek and suck up the hydraulic fluid that's sitting on top. So the crews are constantly coming up with innovative ways to find solutions to everyday issues that pop up because it's always something new in Public Works. On the left, we have our jet truck, which we are requesting to replace. And then on the right is our old CCTV truck. And this is Paul Dement. He is one of our long-term sanitary sewer workers. And on the screen is his camera's on this side, and on the opposite side, he's actually coordinating with the person with the root cutter to let them know, like, okay, you got all the roots, so you can move forward and down the line and down the line and down the line. So that's something else that we're able to do in-house instead of outsourcing. Here are some 2021 sanitary sewer findings. The one on the bottom left has been fixed. It was a severely collapsed pipe. You can kind of see the offset with the roundness on top. That's dirt sitting above that. The whole pipe just kind of collapsed. We are not able to get to everything because it is an old infrastructure. Here's some more in 2024 or 2022 that we found. The one in the middle is another root situation we were able to fix for $719. So again, that maintenance is really going a long way in trying to keep this infrastructure going as long as we can. This is Southgate. So this was found in 2021. Replacement is currently under, engineering is taken care of right now. And you might think, that's a really long time in between these, right? Like, you found it in 2021, you're only just now getting to it. Why? This is why. These are snippets from my own email saying, oh, we have to reallocate funds. We have to reallocate funds. So we plan on doing repairs, and then emergency situations come up where we have to reallocate that. And to go back to accountability or accountable stewardship, we try to, again, coordinate with different departments, especially when it comes to utility rates, so that we can minimize any increase. So Southgate is one. We are aligning with our overlay program this year. And so we are able to do, not including labor or equipment, which obviously would increase this cost drastically, but the bid total for the contractor was $205,000. We're doing an additional $30,000 in just overlay for that project, which would have required an additional 0.22% increase in sewer rate. So that is, again, savings that we are able to do through coordination with engineering department. Another similar thing that we had done a few years back was the Orchard Drive area. If you remember, the road was all tore up. We've been meaning to get to it, but we knew we had to do a water main replacement. So this was the same type of scenario. So we went in, and as part of the overlay program that year, we did the ADA ramps, and we included that as part of our 2-inch overlay program. And that cost, again, just in materials, $94,000 that Public Works was able to take on and not increase the water rate. So again, through some very creative collaboration, this is the kind of creative accounting we want to do, right, Jenny? So that, again, would have required a 0.8% increase in water rate that we did not have to do. Our overlay program, so we have done 44.98 in the last 6 years. We are requesting 10 miles again this year. I think it's definitely needed. It's very visible, and it is, again, community members really get like the best bang for their buck, right, with this overlay program. Like, we can really extend the longevity of the streets this way. Along with our overlay program, anytime we touch an ADA ramp, we have to bring it up to code. And so that's the really expensive part of this, but it's really impactful for those that need these ADA ramps in place. It's not just replacing ones that are there, it's also engineering going out ahead of time and saying, okay, we should have had one here this whole time, let's go ahead and implement this. Something that we are adding into this is also catch basins with tri-tops, and trying to also redo those as we come across them where there's sidewalks behind them. So community members aren't confused as that is like a place where they should be walking. So we're trying to mitigate that issue as well. Who we're trying to, or who we are impacting. So according to the 2023 census information, our community is made up of 17.9% of low to moderate income. And so we want to try and make sure that we're impacting people within a quarter mile and a half mile in the same demographic that our community is made up of. We do anticipate us not being able to reach this goal as the lead line program continues. But again, coordinating with water and being able to come in after the fact, after they're done with an area, hopefully that will help us start meeting that within the next 2 years. Public safety. Like I said, we're kind of in everything. So from the flood wall, trying to like go through the seasons, right? We have winter, so we got snow and ice and EOCs, and then we have flood season, so trying to maintain that almost 6 miles worth of flood control system. We also, our fleet maintenance works on the emergency vehicles, right? So fire and police vehicles, they work on them every single day. That's a picture of an EOC that we're in, but it's also curbside collection diversion. We're diverting things from people's homes to keep them safe, taking it to the landfill, and people think a landfill, okay, yeah, you just go and bury it. No, they're also diverting, especially with their battery program, recycling program they're pushing out. That also helps our crews that are on site mitigating fires before they happen. Something that I also want to touch on is, even with everything that we do, and even though this is a brand new team, the 2 new field operations supervisors, Bob Berry and Brian Wolfko, for the very first time, less than a year, both of them in their jobs, have already come up with flood contingency plans for some of the pumps. We've never had those before. Like, hey, what happens if a pump does go down? And so they've already created one for Moss Park this year, and I believe they're working on the next one. They're ready to go. So that's what I mean by they're hitting the ground running. So that's something that we're going to be able to implement into our flood control plan for people after us and so on. So net property tax support is $1.56 million, which is the average homeowner's property tax cost for Public Works would be $24.47. Which I'm not gonna lie, me personally, that's a lot of money. Public Works, that's only 7.3% of our entire budget. So while we don't do a lot of big project CIPs or public improvement projects, that's to maintain what we currently have infrastructure-wise, fleet-wise, the conveyance system for solid waste, et cetera. 92.7% of that revenue comes from user service fees, state road use tax, and garage recharges. The refuse proposed rate increase is 5%, which the monthly bill impact for average household is $0.86. Nobody ever says cents or uses that sign anymore. It's like my favorite sign. It's nowhere. So even with a 5% rate increase, that does put Dubuque as the third lowest. Or, right, yes, third from the bottom. There we go. And yes, I've heard things like, okay, that's not inflation, and no, because we do have some improvement packages in there. We are trying to better the program that we were doing, especially as we roll out more carts and push automation and whatnot. Recycling carts versus recycling tonnage. So here it looks like tonnage has decreased, even though we keep pushing out more blue carts, but that's a good thing because people are throwing away more, or less, sorry, not more, less. So diversion has actually increased by 0.10% from the prior fiscal year. Like I said, we are working on automating routes. We finally got our 5 trucks in, and you can kind of see on the left side is us kind of going through all of the trash routes and saying, okay, which truck should go on which one, and all of this stuff. And then, okay, where does this one leave this one? We're moving things around like puzzle pieces on a board. And working through all of the nuances with that, and along with staff. I mean, it's not an easy change for staff who love to get out of the vehicle and be physical and, they don't want to sit still, right? But at the same time, we have to look out for their safety. And so trying to balance that with them and work with them on this change has been huge, and Jake's done a really great job of doing that. For capital improvement projects, the milling program, for the overlay program, it's also in conjunction with the curb ramp program and some curb replacement program. So what we do is we send out postcards ahead of time, say, hey, is there any curb that needs to be redone in your area? We go out and reevaluate it, and then we're able to do that as well. So our whole kind of mindset is how do we do this as comprehensively as possible so that we're not coming in a year later and trying to fix a curb or something else. It makes it much more cost effective. Fuel island rehabilitation, that is much needed, so thank you so much for that. I do appreciate it. As does, I'm sure, everybody's budget who's been paying, a slight increase from going to retail currently. And then the sewer jet vac truck replacement, as I said, it's rusting out. The reel's rusting out, the hydraulic pump, the water pump, all of the things. It is a 2014, so it's overdue for replacement. And most of it was funded last year. We just need a little bit more, which is the $45,000 in this year, just to get us so that we can start getting that truck and put it in service. The sanitary sewer root foaming, $25,000, and then solid waste vehicle replacement of $200,000. Improvement requests. I know Public Works is known for putting in a lot of improvement requests. This year, what I'm most excited about is not just that 11 out of 15 of them were recommended, but also this year was the very first year that every single person in Public Works had the opportunity to put input in for an improvement package. And what's even more exciting, all of them were safety related. The uniforms, the tool allowance, the boot allowance, and then some vehicle safety kits, hydraulic spill kits. I mean, every single one of them were safety related. So that was really, we didn't get a lot of them from staff, but every single one were relatively minor dollars, and all safety related about, hey, I need you to keep me safe and this is how I need you to do it. And so hopefully by them seeing like, hey, some of this stuff is going to be recommended and stuff, we'll be able to hear more and more innovative ideas about what they need in the field. So fleet camera, AVL, and diagnostics. Our hope with that and intent with that is to become, or I guess develop a more proactive preventive maintenance program for our vehicles. As we see each year, one of the first things to be deferred is a vehicle replacement in a lot of the different enterprise funds, road use tax, et cetera. And so hopefully this will help us gather better data so that we can see, okay, what really does need to be replaced and what can't really be afforded to be deferred. Annual uniforms, again, that's safety related. It is high vis. Once they put it in, I was like, okay, like, let me look at this, right? And then you see on the tag, and it's like, oh, these actually only have 25 to 50 washes maximum. So this will actually allow us to give them that coverage all 365 days of the year, which we had not been doing before. Employee recognition, this is a really small amount to just show individuals who do operations and maintenance in general already feel unseen unless something goes wrong, right? Then it's like, well, oh my gosh, Public Works didn't plow my street, or they plowed my driveway in, or they did this, or they did that. And so this kind of allows us to give some of that feedback, a small monetary dollar amount to, maybe it's a leave day or an additional day off or something like that they can use at any time, to give them some feedback and make them feel good, like, hey, we do see you. You saved baby ducks. Like, we have that all the time with our sewer crews. Like, they're always saving baby ducks and doing great things. And so this is something that we can do internally. Tool allowance for the fleet maintenance and boot allowance. The boot allowance is new, and so we'll be trialing it in the fleet maintenance area and just kind of seeing how that goes. That will come with a policy on what is required. It'll probably be OSHA standards, right? Steel-toed, probably 6 inches from the heel to the top, make sure there's some ankle support. Those two were also not only recommended by the employees, but also through our fleet assessment that we had done. And then additional 2 miles of overlay. So the current operating budget recommendation does include 8 miles, so this additional 2 miles would take us up to that 10 miles. So for non-recurring vehicle safety kits, so that's going to be some sunscreen because they're outside all day long. They work straight 8s. They don't get breaks. They don't come back for lunch. It's going to be thermal blankets, send them out to a blizzard. Sometimes they do get stuck. Our trucks get stuck just like everyone else's. And sometimes when you need the truck that we provide for fire or police to get there to help them, sometimes it can make things delayed. And so if they needed a thermal kit or something like that, they would be able to have that thermal blanket. And just little things like that, fuses, light bulbs, flashlights, just the things that you don't think about, but we're always telling people like, hey, there's a blizzard coming, make sure you have this in your car. We just want to provide a smidge of that to our own employees. Solid waste vehicle kits, this is going to help our stormwater with hydraulic. As we go automation, there's way more hydraulic lines and stuff on the vehicle, so anytime there's a small spill, instead of calling a mechanic out or somebody else out, this will actually save money overall in a different fund where they can just kind of cover that spill themselves and move on. Solid waste recycling carts, so this is non-recurring, but we're excited to get more recycling carts out there. We have a huge request for these. I mean, people just love them. And then Dale Carnegie, team building consultant. Like I said, we've had a lot of change, both in the fleet area, and there's some even more changes to come with the fleet area, but also amongst the leadership staff, office staff. As I was like thinking about this, I was like, oh my gosh, like what did I sign up for? As I think about all the changes that have happened since before I even had, the director job, but all of the different softwares that we've done, and the unknown, just naturally people have untrust, right? And so this is gonna help us build that trust, especially with me going on parental leave soon. Then there's like another gap of leadership, and then coming back and stuff. So I think this is really gonna help us find cohesion, but also focus our goal on and aligning it from Public Works all the way up to City Council goals. And with everyone having the same goal, I think we'll have more cohesion and make sure that we're all on the same page going forward, and there's no question. Some future initiatives. Alley rate equalization, like I said, the fuel island rehabilitation. Fleet utilization analysis, we'll be able to do that once we get the GPS and the AVL diagnostic tools in there. We'll be able to see how often are they driven, can housing share with building, and so on and so forth, and kind of see where we can condense the fleet if possible. And then accreditation. So we're in the midst of accreditation, and part of that is documenting all the policies and procedures that have never been documented. That we just know, right? We just know how to do it. I don't know how to do nothing, so I'm always like, tell me what you do, and that's fine. But we need to start documenting this so that succession planning can start happening naturally, so that those that come after us don't have to deal with some of the frustrations of like, oh my gosh, where did they put this? I think they wrote it on a piece of paper. We're coming across some pretty old documents that we have to update and stuff. So part of accreditation is also keeping that going and updating that each year. The landfill 3C project is a go. We got approval to move forward with that, so that's really exciting, not just for us, for also community members, being able to have somewhere they can go, and everything's literally very convenient, all in one location for them to go to. And then thank you. And before questions, I just want to say admin staff. So that's one of the groups that I did not talk about, because without them, we wouldn't be able to do anything. If you look in our policy documents, we've pulled the phone call data, and in calendar year 2024, for 3 FTEs, over 12,000 phone calls were taken by each one of them. That is a lot, and that's what I mean by we have all of our fingers in all of the pots, and they are the hub. I actually had to kind of get onto them the other day because they were like, oh, this person's like super admin, and this person does this, and this person does this. And I'm like, do you guys realize how much you do? Like, you have 27 different activities. You guys take over 12,000 phone calls. Like, next time I hear something about somebody being super admins, it better be each other, because you guys, they really do keep us all together and let us know what needs to be done, and gets that information to the supervisor so they can manage their crews. So I just thought that was really eye-opening. 12,000 phone calls a year. I personally would probably go crazy, but they do it, and they do it with grace, and we get so many phone calls and emails and text messages talking about how calm they are and how helpful they are and how they go above and beyond, and they take that extra second and minute to kind of talk somebody through different options they didn't even know they had. So huge shout out to our admin team. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ariel. Well, we are in a public hearing to discuss the Public Works budget for fiscal year 26. Do we have any public input? Clark, you're up.
Clark Slows, 25 Burlington Street. And get to my explanation, for tonight's meeting, I watched last year's meetings with Public Works. Wife thinks I'm a glutton for punishment. And I looked at the policy book for tonight and started out with Public Works. And I'm going down the proposed improvement list and going, 15 of them, a lot of them started going through, yeah, reasonable. Got to item number 6, which was the uniforms or shirts and a minor item, kind of skipped over it, went, to the end of the list and came back and going, wait a minute, Were they using road use tax money for shirts? Are these, I'll call them, safety reflective shirts like you've seen, in the photographs there? Or are they, the logo polos? And, I'm thinking, which is it? It's not exactly, comes right out and say it that they're, I'll call them safety equipment, safety apparel, which is, to me, a very legitimate use of road use tax money. If they would be for the polos, I'm going, no. This would have been a very different discussion tonight. And, I'm kind of doing some research, kind of Googling things. Is this allowed or not? And kind of interesting when you Google it, are non-safety apparel approved for road use tax? And is safety apparel approved? And on the same page, when you're looking at that, it's kind of like one source says yes, one source says no for both the polos and the safety thing. So what do I do? I still have some contacts in the Iowa DOT. They know more what's allowed and what isn't, because I asked the question, I says, I'd be willing to bet, the polos aren't allowed, but how can you not say safety apparel is not allowed for road use tax money? That's why I say, the water resources and the water people and myself over a steak dinner, because of that little one thing kind of kept my mind occupied from looking at, the rest of the public works. So, I owe her an apology because I kind of sent, I would call it a harsh email, and she handled it very well. And if the city manager is still listening in, she deserves a raise for putting up with me. You may not want that recommendation from me though. You might not want to use that as a source. And, as far as, using my standard, the rate increase is greater than the rate of inflation. Well, 86 cents, I lose that in the couch while I'm laying on it, watching Monday Night Football. I bet if I went and raised the cushions up, I can more than cover that. So, the percentage increase may say, okay, it's twice the rate of inflation. But you look at the gross dollar amount, heck, I think I can afford 86 cents. If I had cash in my pocket, I'd give it to you now. So she did well. I mean, she earned her money, more than earned it. Putting up with me, you more than earned it. That's all I got.
All right. Thank you, Clark, for your comments. All right. See nobody else here? Anybody virtually for us tonight? All right. All right. Back to us to take it home. Mr. Resnick.
Thank you for the presentation. A lot going on. Actually, the police, fire, and public works, the public that I talk to loves every one of those departments, and they really appreciate the snow and getting out there and working on stuff when they drive by in their comfortable car. And here we have three people, down in the ditch. We don't know what they're doing, but they have to be there and they're doing something good. There's a lot of appreciation for that. I need to know what alley rate equalization is. What is that?
Yeah, so before we pushed the curbside collection automation in the carts and mandated everyone having a cart, we did trial them in some of the alleys. And they get a slight discount because they were the first ones. And so trying to figure out how best to bring them back up to regular rate now that it's been mandated without like a shock to them all in one year. So that's what we would be working on, as a strategic approach to equalizing those rates to what everyone else pays.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor?
Ms. Farmer.
Yeah, so your last point, and thank you very much first for your presentation and for your group to be here at this hour to join us in this conversation. You mentioned that there are a staff of 3 full-time employees who manage over 12,000 calls, emails, et cetera, per year. And that really shows that the residents of the city of Dubuque are very concerned, interested in what your product and services are. So I think that's a statement in and of itself. Earlier tonight, Chris Coleman and Mr. Pregler talked about the IT services and all of the smart applications. And I was wondering if some of those smart applications could help those 3 full-time employees as they answer emails and perhaps have some of those calls diverted to some kind of an AI application for response. So just food for thought on that, and that would give them opportunity to be a little more diverse and perhaps do some other things for the department. And I also noticed that you had your camera, AVL, and your diagnostic software coming up, and I look forward to that will help you as well with your data collection and perhaps with more efficiencies as to your routing and to all the things that you do for the city. So perhaps, a call to the IT department to kind of monitor, to kind of bring those 3 systems. You have another monitoring as well for your single point operations, I see. And so maybe those could all be together somehow with your smart applications.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say that we have our lead administrative assistant. I won't look at her because she was like, don't look at me. But she is part of the Admin Allies, which is that group that Chris Coleman was talking about earlier tonight that are really interested in being part of that. So, yes.
Well, good. Well, good luck with that, and nothing but efficiencies, I hope, for you. And I look forward to hearing more about that at soon or at the next presentation next year. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Jones.
For all those phone calls that your staff is handling, they're apparently handling them pretty well, because you know how many phone calls I get about public works deficiencies? Almost none, ever. It's because the work's being done well. It's because when the phone's answered, the action occurs. So keep it up. Congratulations.
Thank you.
No? All right. Well, a few things I'm really happy to see. First of all, I want to repeat what Mr. Resnick said. I heard every single day that it snowed, which wasn't as many days this year, but every single day that it did, somebody stopped me and said something about how great the streets looked in the city of Dubuque. And I told them, you're welcome, because it was all me that did that for them. No, I said absolutely that our Public Works Department is the greatest and they're doing really good work. But it is more than just the snow days. It is, we do get a lot of praise and things that are going on. I just want you to know, like when you're down in the mud, people are noticing the work that you're doing. And even when you're not down in the mud and you're doing logistical work that needs to get done to get all these things happening, our community appreciates it. I'm really happy to see all the safety related improvements that you pointed out. Really happy to see the extra miles of overlay. It's something that was important to us for the last couple of years, and it's important to us because it's important to the community. I think to live in a place where when you drive into Dubuque, you're like, man, it's so much better here than the town I was just in, and I won't mention any of those towns' names, but it's always a good feeling to be able to know that, we're working really hard to make that not just better, but safe and safer for everybody. Really happy to see more investment in the recycling carts too. I would love to see those on every single house, and I understand the difficulty of it. I understand we're chasing grants to do it, and grants sometimes just disappear and poof into thin air. It makes it really hard to do it, but I think it's really important that we're continuing to push forward with that. My one question is the accreditation, and please forgive me for not knowing this. We're not already accredited, right? This is a new process?
In Public Works, correct.
Okay.
So a couple years ago, right before John retired about that time, you guys approved going for accreditation as part of one of the improvement packages. And so we have 3 years to do that. And the deadline would be June 2026. So
great. Thank you for helping us to remember that. Yes, I was trying to remember the timeline there, but that's very useful. Okay, good. So I understand it's an arduous process, and I appreciate the work that you're doing with doing that. So thank you. All right. Well, we have reached the end. I want to point out that it is before 10 o'clock. It is before 10 p.m. So congratulations, everybody. We made it before 10 p.m. Mainly, Chris Gray, that's for you. So we will be adjourned until Thursday in our next public hearing. Thank you very much, Ariel, and the entire team for being here.